If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Smack. Even Robin was a little surprised. After all, she had been paying attention to what was happening with Chopper just now. She hadn't expected that the pill that gave Chopper such a massive power boost was actually made by Veer. Veer seems to know a lot of things. Robin's gaze towards Veer shifted once again. So it was because of a pill, huh? Ha ha ha. Raki let out an awkward laugh. Looking at things now, it feels like we're the weakest ones here. What a blow to the ego. Yet, it's just because of the pill. Kamakiri quickly chimed in, trying to reassure himself. But that statement made Veer a little unhappy. What did he mean by that? Looking down on our Chopper? It's one thing for the Marines to look down on him, but you two? Who do you think you are looking down on? Veer spoke up on the spot. But that wasn't enough. He had to teach this guy a lesson, make sure he remembers it well. Chopper is under protection, after all. Veer swung his palm straight toward Kamakiri. He didn't use much force, just enough to teach him a lesson. But precisely because he didn't put much strength into it, the guy actually managed to react in time and dodge. As he dodged, Raki, who was standing right next to him, got hit instead. Veer didn't have time to pull back his hand. And not only that, because of the angle, the slap landed right on Raki's rear. Asterisk smack. Asterisk. The crisp sound echoed through the entire forest. Instantly, Raki's face turned red. Chopper and Robin also widened their eyes in shock. Stop! Damn it! You bastard! What did you just do to Raki? At that moment, an enraged roar sounded from a distance. Whipper, looking like he was about to explode with fury, appeared nearby. He had rushed into the forest and sprinted straight toward the altar. He was worried that Veer might be bullying Raki. But he hadn't expected this. The moment he arrived, he saw both of them covered in wounds. And Raki was even in disheveled clothes, barely covered by a few torn scraps that just barely hid the most essential parts. This scene was enough for him to conclude that the two had suffered some inhumane torment. And just when he was about to make his move to take down Veer and save them, he saw something that made his eyes burn with rage. This bastard actually slapped his childhood friend's butt right in front of him. Who wouldn't go berserk seeing this? Who wouldn't be furious? That's right, Whipper was about to explode with rage. Veer also recognized who he was at that moment. How did this guy find his way here? Then, suddenly, Veer thought of something. His eyes lit up. This guy has sea stone on him. Perfect, he can ask him for some. Otherwise, when it comes time to treat Enel, that guy might just use electrotherapy to heal himself. He can't electrocute others, but he sure as hell can electrocute himself. After all, if he gets knocked out with a sedative brick, he'll wake right back up. As long as he's conscious, he can use electricity to treat himself. If he heals himself, where am I supposed to get my reward? At that moment, Veer also noticed the sheer anger on Whipper's face. Just as he was wondering what was going on, he suddenly realized. Wait, didn't I just slap his woman's butt? Oh crap! This is bad. I can't clear my name now. But I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Veer raised his hand and innocently waved it around, gesturing that he really didn't mean it. But to Whipper, this scene looked entirely different. You bastard, you slapped my woman's ass right in front of me. And now you're raising that hand to show off to me. It's like you're saying, your, is pretty nice. Alright. I've seen arrogance before, but never this level of arrogance. This is practically the equivalent of slapping a green hat onto my head. And after putting it on, you even say, here you go, no need to thank me. Whipper went full primal mode, transforming into a berserker. He activated his jet dial and charged straight at Veer. Seeing this, Veer hadn't even reacted yet. Raki was the first to move. She immediately stood in front of Veer. She spread her arms wide, just like someone protecting their illicit lover. She had already seen Veer's strength firsthand. One kick and Gidetsu was sent straight to the afterlife. This was not someone to mess with casually. If Whipper pushed him too far, things would get out of hand. Even though she was still extremely embarrassed that Veer had slapped her but her face was still burning red, she couldn't let Whipper go to his death. But to Whipper, this scene chilled his heart. The girl he liked had been hit by another man. And now, she was standing in front of him, blocking his way. The meaning behind this couldn't be clearer. What does this guy have that I don't? Just because he's taller. Bigger. So what if he's just bigger and taller? Even Whipper, despite his rage, felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. His face turned incredibly grim. But once he calmed down, he became even angrier. Turns out being calm and being angry aren't mutually exclusive. Just as Raki was about to explain, Whipper suddenly dashed past her with a sharp turn. His fist shot straight toward Veer. Seeing that she couldn't stop Whipper, Raki could only hope that Veer would go easy on him. Go easy on him. He didn't mean to. She hurriedly shouted to Veer. But hearing that, it sounded like she was saying it to Whipper too. Go easy on him? It wasn't intentional? Alright, alright. What kind of magic does this guy have? In such a short time, he's already got Raki wrapped around his finger. That really pisses me off. I'm going to beat his brains out. Seeing this, Veer knew there was no way to explain this anymore. Might as well not waste words. Knocking him out would be just as effective. By now, Whipper had reached Veer and aimed his palm at him. Raki and Kamakiri instantly recognized the shell in his hand. Reject dial. Whipper, are you insane? The two shouted in unison. Reject dial was just like impact dial. Except it had recoil. The user would suffer just as much damage. Naturally, its power far exceeded that of an impact dial. If this hit Veer, both of them would be badly hurt. Veer was also getting irritated. His observation Haki had already sensed the danger from the shell in Whipper's hand. Even he wouldn't get away unscathed if he didn't do something. This guy is really pushing it. But Whipper, blinded by rage, activated it without hesitation. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. An unbelievably powerful impact shot out from Whipper's reject dial. The immense recoil sent Whipper flying backward. This. Whipper is way too reckless. Kamakiri shouted in frustration. Everyone anxiously looked at Veer. Only to see Veer still standing there. He hadn't moved an inch. On his chest, a deep black sheen was visible. It was an immense armament Haki coating, formed with a great expenditure of energy. Veer's expression was not pleasant. This guy had gone too far. Chapter 62, Zen Blessings. Suddenly, Veer's figure vanished from his original position. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Whipper. Since you don't want to listen to reason, then I won't bother reasoning with you. Whipper, still reeling from the impact of the reject dial, was shocked to see a figure suddenly appear before him. This speed. So fast. Without hesitation, Veer lifted his foot and delivered a heavy stomp with triple the force, aiming straight for Whipper's not-so-reliable head. Whipper wanted to dodge. But he couldn't. This speed was beyond his ability to react. Veer didn't have the cramping issue that plagued Yellow Second Uncle. TL note, likely a Kizaru reference. His foot came down without any hesitation, landing squarely on Whipper's head. The sheer force of the blow caused Whipper's eyes to widen in shock. He realized something was wrong. But it was already too late. The sheer impact spread instantly across the ground, creating a massive crater beneath them. Whipper was knocked out on the spot. His iron willpower was still not enough to withstand Veer's strike. Veer glanced at the unconscious tough-headed warrior with distaste, wiping his shoe clean. Then, he picked up the small chunk of sea stone that had fallen from Whipper's grasp and tossed it into his medical kit. The sudden turn of events left everyone around stunned. Staring at the enormous crater, the others couldn't help but gasp. What kind of strength is this? This was clearly far stronger than the attack he had just used on Gidetsu. So that wasn't even his full power earlier? Raki was genuinely shaken by the continuous displays of Veer's strength. Was this guy really just some random pirate from the Blue Sea? Because he sure didn't seem like it. She hurried over to check on Whipper's condition. But she wasn't too worried after all, Whipper was the strongest warrior on their side. Even if he couldn't defeat Veer, he shouldn't have been knocked out in a single hit, right? She rushed into the crater. Inside, Whipper lay motionless at the bottom. His face, which already had half of it covered in tribal tattoos, was now fully symmetrical. One half was tattooed. The other half? A perfect shoe print. Flawlessly balanced. Whipper had completely lost consciousness, lying there in the pit. Raki was utterly horrified. Whipper had actually been knocked out with a single attack. What? Was Veer's kick not as simple as it looked? This was ridiculous. Even Whipper couldn't withstand it. Veer had been genuinely annoyed just now. So, of course, he hadn't held back. That stomp had been infused with armament haki. Combined with the triple damage boost, Whipper would be unconscious for at least a full day. That guy was really annoying. All I wanted was to borrow some sea stone, but no, he had to make me take it by force. Now that he had this small piece of sea stone, the upcoming treatment wouldn't be a problem anymore. Of course, this troublemaker still needed to be carried along, otherwise, the guide would probably quit on the spot. Not even medical threats would work then. Robin and Chopper were both staring, wide-eyed. That side of Veer was terrifying. It was the first time either of them had seen him like that. The usually easygoing Veer was absolutely ruthless when angry. They silently agreed, they must never make him mad. If he got angry, he'd probably beat them up and then heal them afterward, an unbeatable strategy. The worst part? They wouldn't even be able to fight back. That was the most frustrating part. Veer's strength left no room for doubt. Oi! Stop staring and get that guy out of there already. We're on a tight schedule. Veer impatiently yelled at Kamakiri, who was still frozen in shock. Only then did Kamakiri snap out of it, shaken by Veer's overwhelming display of power. He hurried over to help. To them, it was simply absurd that Veer had taken Whipper down with a single blow. His strength, it really might be enough to challenge Enel. Maybe, just maybe, he really could take down that guy. Both warriors realized this at the same time, and from each other's eyes, they saw a glimmer of hope. From then on, their guiding became noticeably more enthusiastic. If they could run, they ran. If they could fly, they flew. Their travel speed instantly increased. They didn't want to give Veer the chance to change his mind. Veer, worried that Enel might escape, was more than happy with this outcome. The faster, the better. That said, in his current state, Veer wasn't entirely sure he could beat Enel. If he relied on armament haki to resist the lightning, his stamina would be drained rapidly. If he didn't block it, he'd get fried to a crisp. Sure, Enel was a glass cannon, but if Veer failed to take him down in one hit, he'd be at a serious disadvantage. That was unacceptable. Veer had already devised a foolproof strategy. He had used his molding ability to prepare a special battle suit inside his medical kit. A completely insulated, custom-made rubber suit designed specifically for fighting Enel. It ensured not a single spark of electricity could get through, completely nullifying Enel's strongest offensive power. The design? Based on superhero aesthetics. Extremely stylish. Of course, it had its drawbacks. It wasn't very durable. It wouldn't be a problem for Veer to move around in it, but if Enel managed to pierce it, it would be over. Even the smallest gap would be exploited by Enel. He'd pour in hundreds of millions of volts in an instant, turning Veer into a crispy fried snack. So this was only the first layer of defense. The real finishing move came next. Veer opened his system shop and looked toward the supreme throne of power. Displayed there was humanity's greatest obstacle to reproduction. A weapon said to claim billions of lives annually. Zen blessings. Price, 12,800 points. Function, absolutely unbreakable. Note, please select your size when ordering. We have all sizes available. Review, indestructible. That's right. It was our good rubber friend, the ultimate safety barrier. Its name might be Zen Blessings, but its function was anything but merciful. As they say, anything from the system is guaranteed to be top tier. And, of course, that meant the price was no joke either. What Veer valued most about it was its rubber material. Rubber, plus absolute indestructibility, plus customizable size. The moment he saw it, he already had the perfect plan in mind. Hopefully, Enel could withstand what was coming. Veer was going to customize a special one just for him. Once he put it on, he'd be completely helpless. As long as Veer sealed the opening, Enel wouldn't be able to escape, and victory would be secured. The battle would end on the spot. With no electricity to rely on and no way to break free, what else could Enel do except take a beating? Veer wasn't just going to make a suit for himself. He was going to make one for Enel too. He had to admit, the system always manages to surprise him in unexpected ways. Giant-sized edition. Veer didn't even dare to imagine how Enel would feel when the time came. After exchanging for it, he quickly stored it in his medical kit. He didn't dare to look at it again. Chapter 63, Enel, how would you like to fall? With this ultimate move, even Enel would have to kneel. While Veer was thinking about Enel, Enel himself was also keeping an eye on Veer. Or rather, he had been watching Veer all along. Because he had a vague feeling that this guy was not ordinary. But after observing for so long, he finally figured it out. This guy did have some strength, but only to a certain extent. Trying to compare himself with a god? He was still far, far behind. Perhaps his brute strength was considerable, but in terms of speed and ability, he was completely outmatched. Not to mention, Enel had an invincible body that was immune to physical attacks. No matter how strong this guy was, before a god, he would still have to kneel. However, if he wanted to become a servant of God, he was certainly qualified. He better know his place. Becoming a servant of God was his only path forward. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Enel couldn't help but smile, as if everything was within his grasp. This was the confidence given to him by the most powerful Logia-type devil fruit. He was an invincible existence. But suddenly, his smile vanished in an instant. Replaced by a face filled with annoyance. Those insects actually made it here. Oh well, since that's the case, I might as well get some exercise. Being killed by God should be an honor for them. As soon as Enel finished speaking, his entire body transformed into a bolt of lightning and disappeared from sight. Below the shrine of God, Nami and the others had arrived. The insects Enel referred to were naturally them. Indeed, aside from Veer, Enel hadn't even bothered to glance at the others. In his eyes, they were nothing more than ants. Nami and the others had come here to defeat Enel and rescue Veer and the others who had been captured. Veer's whereabouts were still unknown, which was not a good news. As for why they arrived before Veer, it was naturally because they had more people. In the original timeline, the rescue team only had 3 members. Now, with Zoro and Nami joining, their advance was much faster. The only unfortunate thing was that Luffy was missing. That guy had suddenly disappeared. Just a moment ago, he was following behind them, but in the blink of an eye, he was gone. Like some kind of magic trick. It was truly baffling. Meanwhile, inside the stomach of a giant snake, Luffy looked around at the pitch-black surroundings, feeling a bit lost. Where am I? Why did it suddenly get dark? Did I fall into a cave? Luffy began searching for an exit with a helpless expression. Back at Nami's group, they were accompanied by an old man riding a pink flying horse. This was the previous god of Skypia. But after Enel arrived, he was overthrown. His goal in coming here was, of course, to defeat the tyrannical Enel and restore peace to the people of Skypia. Hey, are we sure Veer is really up there? Could we be mistaken? Zoro asked with some doubt. After all, these vines didn't seem like something a ship could climb. Moss head, why do you care? Nami-san said it's here, so it's here. Just do what you're told. Sanji's remark immediately infuriated Zoro, and the two were about to fight when suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared not far ahead. This sudden appearance shocked everyone. What kind of speed was that? None of them had even seen how he got there. Enel. Ganfal's deep voice revealed the identity of the figure ahead. Hearing the name, everyone was stunned. So this was the so-called god? Things were looking bad. Just from that display of speed, it was clear that this guy was powerful. At the very least, he was incredibly fast. It looked like this was going to be tough. Zoro and Sanji both tensed up, ready for whatever came next. At that moment, Enel, sitting on his floating sphere, finally spoke. You pathetic weaklings, are you coming at me together or one by one? He looked at them with utter disdain, not even bothering to lift his eyelids. He didn't take them seriously at all. Ganfal was the first to move. He charged forward at an incredible speed, thrusting his knight's lance with all his might. But Enel didn't even attempt to dodge, he even yawned. Seeing this, Zoro and the others were sure of victory. They had witnessed the old man's strength firsthand, he was quite formidable. This guy wasn't dodging? Then this attack would definitely deal a heavy blow. In the next instant, the lance pierced straight through Enel's chest. Everyone's faces lit up with joy. But Ganfal, the one who had struck, suddenly changed his expression. He desperately tried to retreat. Just as the lance was about to be withdrawn, a sudden change erupted. A powerful surge of electricity exploded. The lightning traveled through the lance and into his body. An immense electric shock coursed through him, robbing him of his ability to resist. Ganfall became an intense, glowing sphere of light. The brightness was almost blinding. After 5 seconds, the lightning finally dissipated. Ganfall crashed heavily to the ground. At that moment, he was practically burnt to a crisp. Smoke rose from his body in wisps, and occasional sparks flickered across his form. This sudden turn of events left Nami and the others completely stunned. What just happened? Why was he suddenly smoking? This guy was definitely not normal. Things had just gotten a whole lot worse. Hey! Is there a chance that Veer is on his way here right now? Zoro asked urgently. Because this guy was clearly what Ace had described, a Logia type. Without Haki, they couldn't do anything to him. And the only one who could use armament Haki, Veer, wasn't here. Unless Veer arrived soon, this guy was basically invincible. We have to assume he's on his way. Just stall for your time. We absolutely can't let Nami-san get hurt. Sanji said, lighting a cigarette. Zoro, too, tied his headband. Veer? That strange guy. Ha 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 ha. Even if he comes, what can he do? I'm a god. Can he kill a god? Enel sneered, then vanished in an instant. He wasn't going to wait for them to attack. He was going to teach these foolish insects a lesson. Before Zoro and Sanji could react, Enel was already in front of them. He pointed both hands at them. 80 million volts. Thunderbolt. A massive surge of electricity engulfed the two of them instantly. They lit up in an instant. The power gap was simply too vast. Even the two of them were taken down in an instant. Asterisk thud. Thud, asterisk. The sound of bodies hitting the ground echoed. Nami and Usopp's hearts clenched in fear. Enel sneered, glancing at the 3 fallen fighters before turning to Nami and Usopp, who were huddled together. They were already terrified. Sanji and Zoro had been taken down instantly. How could they possibly fight back? Was Veer really on his way? That question was more important than ever. You two, how would you like to fall? I think a head-first crash sounds nice. Want to give it a try? Enel taunted, making the two shudder. It was over. They were done for. Just as they were about to despair, a voice rang out from behind them. I think you should be the one to demonstrate first. Chapter 64, Bro. For real. That voice and those words made Enel furrow his brows. The tone carried an unmistakable sense of arrogance, as if he wasn't even worth acknowledging. At the same time, the voice itself seemed to possess some kind of magic. The moment Nami and Usopp heard it, an inexplicable sense of relief washed over them. The despair on their faces vanished instantly, replaced by the joy of surviving a catastrophe. Excited, they quickly turned around to look behind them. But what they saw was not the familiar figure of Veer. Instead, it was a strange silhouette dressed in a black suit. The sight left them completely dumbfounded. Who are you? Nami and Usopp screamed in shock on the spot. That voice had clearly belonged to Veer. So why was there a bizarrely dressed stranger standing before them instead? Or could it be that this guy was mimicking Veer's voice? But that was impossible. It sounded way too identical. How many Veers would someone need to eat to get it this accurate? And as for Veer wearing something like this? They had never even considered the possibility. Sure, the outfit was pretty cool, but Veer wasn't the type to have a masked superhero fetish, was he? Suddenly, Usopp thought of something. If this guy wasn't Veer, didn't that mean they were still doomed? Nami had the exact same thought. It's over, Nami. We're dead for sure. I still have so much money I haven't spent. I don't wanna die yet. The two of them clung to each other and bawled on the spot. They had just found hope, only to be thrown back into despair again. Hey? Nami, Usopp, why are you crying? At that moment, Chopper's voice rang out. Hearing it, the two immediately turned toward him. Several figures were standing nearby. A glimmer of hope reignited in their eyes. They quickly ran toward Chopper and Robin, shouting as they ran, Chopper! Robin! Where's Veer? Hurry and bring him out! Seeing Chopper here meant Veer had to be close by. Those two were practically inseparable even when sleeping, they stuck together. If Chopper was here, then Veer couldn't be far. But their question left Chopper completely confused. Looking for my big bro? My big bro has been standing here the whole time. What other big bro are you looking for? Since when did I have so many big brothers? My big bro is right here. Chopper said in confusion. Robin, meanwhile, covered her mouth with a light chuckle. With Veer present, she and Chopper had little to worry about. Their mood was quite relaxed. Hearing Chopper's words, Nami and Usopp turned to look at the odd-looking guy standing there, staring at Enel. That's Veer? Your big bro, is into this kind of thing lately. Usopp hesitated as he asked. Is this some new play of his? Nami also asked with a strange expression. Enel, however, wasn't as slow-witted as Nami and Usopp. He had already recognized Veer from the start. Though he was angered by Veer's earlier words, he didn't immediately make a move. He wanted to recruit Veer first. As he gazed at the oddly dressed Veer before him, he finally spoke up. Kid, I know you have some strength. You're indeed stronger than the weaklings lying on the ground. But you are nothing before me. I am a god, high above all. I am the embodiment of lightning itself, the true thunder god. No mere mortal can ever touch me. But I will give you a chance to live. Become my servant. Be my attend. Enel spoke with an air of superiority, as if bestowing charity, but before he could finish his sentence, Veer cut him off. You really talk a lot, hey. Since Veer was wearing a mask, his expression of speechlessness wasn't visible. He was also carefully assessing the situation. If he attacked directly, he'd be at a speed disadvantage. Lightning speed wasn't just for show. At the very least, if this guy decided to run, Veer had no way of catching him. It would be best to provoke Enel into attacking first. With his observation hacky, he could easily exploit an opening. So Veer wasn't in a rush to attack. Instead, he decided to tick Enel off first. Just one sentence, and Enel was already visibly irritated. A trace of anger flickered across his face. Yet, he still didn't make a move. This alone showed how much he truly wanted to recruit Veer. Otherwise, with his temperament, he would have zapped Veer into oblivion by now. Fine, fine, fine. It seems you don't understand the gap between us. Very well, I'll make you see reality. Come. Attack me. Enel said confidently, folding his hands behind his back. No doubt about it, just from those words alone, his sense of superiority was maxed out. And as soon as he said it, everyone else tensed up. Because this guy, actually seemed really strong. His presence alone was overwhelming. Raki and the others, who knew Enel's power firsthand, recalled the terror he instilled in them. Was Veer really his match? It wasn't just her, everyone who was still conscious had the same thought. The sheer pressure Enel exuded was immense. With a mere flick of his hand, he had taken down two of their strongest fighters. Yet he remained utterly composed against Veer. No one knew just how powerful Enel truly was. No one felt confident about Veer's chances. But at this moment, Veer stood tall, showing not the slightest trace of fear. Though, beneath his mask, he was grinning from ear to ear. Brother, are you for real? I can attack however I want. Are you seriously being this generous? Veer absolutely loved Enel's personality. Arrogant, overconfident, full of himself. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Since you're being so polite, I won't hold back either. I promise, you won't be disappointed. Really? I can attack however I want. Veer struggled to suppress his trembling excitement and forced himself to sound normal. Of course. All right. Since you put it that way, I won't hold back. If you can withstand 3 of my attacks, I'll even become your servant. It took everything Veer had to finish that sentence without bursting out laughing. Hearing this, Enel immediately grinned. What a deal. 3 attacks? Even if he let Veer throw 300 attacks, so what? In his mind, his new servant was already secured. This guy was actually pretty obedient. Chopper and the others couldn't help but tense up. Big bros playing for such high stakes? He bet everything on this? If he lost, wouldn't it be game over? Hurry up and start. Enel urged impatiently. Both sides had the exact same thought in their minds. What a great deal. But who it was truly a great deal for? Only time would tell. Chapter 65, Situation is bad, retreat immediately. At this moment, Veer's fully charged right leg was already itching to strike. He didn't choose to charge in recklessly but instead walked forward slowly. Standing in front of Enel, who wore a face full of contempt, Veer didn't hesitate. He unleashed his full strength. His right leg lashed out fiercely towards Enel's chest. This kick carried no restraint whatsoever. With his leg-enhancing ability and the triple damage boost, the sheer force of this attack even produced a sonic boom. Yet, standing before Veer, Enel still had an air of complete ease, calm and unbothered. Such an attack could never hit him. His mantra had not sensed any danger from this strike. Though the sheer power of the kick was indeed terrifying, perhaps even beyond what he himself could achieve with raw physical strength alone. If it couldn't land, then it was meaningless. No matter how powerful, it was all for nothing. However, his gaze toward Veer grew more satisfied. What a perfect servant of God! Strong! Not bad at all. But just as Veer's attack was about to connect with Enel, a sudden change occurred. A deep, jet-black layer instantly coated Veer's right leg. That was none other than Armament Haki, on the verge of advancing to the next level. And it was fully unleashed. First strike! Enel's expression changed drastically. His mantra screamed in alarm, warning him like mad. For the first time, he truly felt an overwhelming sense of danger from Veer's attack. Wait! This isn't right! Realizing the imminent threat, Enel shouted in shock. He hurriedly tried to transform into lightning to evade the strike. But how could he possibly dodge an attack so meticulously timed by Veer? Too close. Even for him, there was no escape. The kick landed squarely on Enel's chest. His expression contorted in agony. His eyes bulged, his mouth gaping open. His chest caved inwards. The dent deepened, until nearly a third of his torso had sunk in. With a thunderous boom, Enel was finally sent flying. The speed of his flight was nearly on par with his own top speed. The impact of the strike even shattered the surrounding floating clouds in an instant. Veer wasted no time, bursting forward in pursuit of Enel's trajectory. He had to press the attack while Enel was still reeling. If he gave this guy a chance to recover, the fight would become far more troublesome. At that moment, Enel crashed down beneath a massive vine. The impact had even blown a huge hole in it, causing the vine to teeter unsteadily. A searing pain radiated from Enel's chest, making his entire body convulse and twitch. His face was twisted in agony. Every breath sent stabbing pain through his lungs. Several broken ribs had punctured his lung tissue. He coughed up another mouthful of fresh blood and was just about to rise, when a shadow loomed over him once again. Second strike! Veer called out, his soul was already inches from Enel's face. Enel finally realized something was seriously wrong. This guy, he had been hiding his strength all along. I've been played. This wasn't good. Retreat! Retreat now! Enel immediately attempted to put some distance between them, intending to use long-range lightning attacks to keep Veer at bay. He had to get serious. Though he didn't know how Veer was managing to hit him, as long as he fought seriously. There was no way this guy could be his match. Time to give him a real blast. With that thought, a powerful surge of lightning erupted toward Veer at point-blank range. 200 million volt Thunder Dragon. At such close range, the formidable Thunder Dragon engulfed Veer in an instant. There was no time to dodge. A triumphant smirk spread across Enel's face. This attack would fry him with ease. There was no way he could withstand it. This was one of his ultimate techniques. That brat was finished. But Veer felt nothing. As he stood amidst the crackling lightning, he could feel the terrifying currents surging over the exterior of his battlesuit, and he was immensely relieved he had put it on earlier. Even his movements remained completely unaffected. What? Enel's face was struck with disbelief. What the hell was going on? But before he could process it further, that incoming soul loomed ever closer. In that instant, a sharp pain surged through his chest. His heart violently spasmed. Veer's earlier kick had indeed been aimed at his heart. He was a doctor, he knew exactly where to strike. This was precisely what Veer had anticipated. And just like that, Enel lost his chance to dodge again. Another vicious kick struck his head. He was sent spiraling through the air once more. The flurry of attacks left the onlookers utterly dumbfounded. Raki and Kamakiri, who had little combat experience, nearly had their jaws drop to the floor. Veer was so strong. He could actually land hits on Enel. Was it because of that black aura? Enel looked utterly powerless before him. Was this his true strength? So all the fighting before was just warm-up? If that kick had landed on Whipper instead, it might have blown him apart on the spot. Nami and Chopper weren't faring much better. They were staring, wide-eyed, unable to tear their gazes away. Their astonishment was practically spilling out of them. Just moments ago, Zoro and the others hadn't even lasted a single move against this guy. Yet Veer was completely overwhelming him. No, he was straight up beating him into the ground. That guy wasn't even getting the chance to use his terrifying lightning powers. Sure, his arrogance had played a part in this. But not just anyone could pull off what Veer was doing. Only Veer could. This guy was absurdly strong. Could he really end this fight in just 3 moves, like he claimed? Enel was utterly dazed. What was happening? Why wasn't his lightning working on Veer? Was it because of that outfit? Damn it! If this continued, he really might get comboed to death. That last kick had left him slightly concussed. For a moment, his vision even doubled. A clear shoe print was now stamped onto his forehead. His signature white turban was nowhere to be seen. His flowing golden hair was now in complete disarray. Veer was practically branding him with every kick. One after another. Enel frantically zapped his own heart with lightning. His heart had been damaged, and if left unchecked, it would continue to hinder his movements. Veer closed in once again. But Enel had finished his self-repair, his speed as quick as ever. His heart now pulsed with renewed vigor. All he wanted was to put some distance between them. Or else he was done for. Those damn kicks hurt like hell. This guy must have a weakness. If it's because of that outfit, then all he need to do is destroy it. There was no way he could lose. Chapter 66, Holy Crap! His thoughts were correct, but now, Veer had already launched another attack. It was as if Veer had anticipated all his escape routes. He had no chance to retreat. Veer's offensive was simply too seamless. There was no way to disengage. Once again, the attack was right in front of him, and once again, he had no way to evade. Left with no choice, Enel could only envelop himself in lightning. In an instant, he transformed into his thunder god form. The golden staff in his hand was now radiating an intimidating heat. The entire weapon was scorching hot. Enel no longer considered retreating, there was no longer an opportunity to do so. He could only go head-to-head with Veer. Raging Spear, Piercing Strike! Enel roared. His figure flickered for a moment before he charged at Veer at full speed. The weapon in his hand exuded a terrifying aura. If this strike hit any part of Veer's body, it would be fatal. The sheer heat of the staff would instantly burn through Veer's suit. But high temperatures weren't the only danger of that weapon. It was a conductor. Through it, Enel could instantly channel his lightning into Veer's body. As long as he could breach Veer's suit, Enel would unleash his full power without reservation. At that point, no matter how strong Veer was, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. After all, he didn't have Luffy's immunity to lightning. But would Veer actually be struck? Of course not. This was all within his calculations. As Enel charged forward, Veer didn't hesitate, he immediately withdrew his previous attack. At the same time, he reached for the medical kit strapped to his waist. From within, he pulled out something that looked very strange to Enel. Veer held it up in front of his chest. It seemed like he intended to use this thing to block Enel's attack. What Veer had taken out was a round object. What is this guy trying to do? Enel couldn't help but wonder. What did he mean by this? Did he really think he could block my attack with that thing? What a joke! This thing looks so thin. Did he really think it could stop my superheated piercing strike? How foolish! Ignorant mortal! Thinking this, he put even more force into his thrust, his speed increasing yet again. He was fully intent on piercing through both that thing and Veer together. In the blink of an eye, Enel's weapon struck. It stabbed fiercely onto the thin surface. But at the moment of contact, it didn't pierce through. Instead, due to the immense force behind the thrust, the membrane behind it bulged violently. Even so, it still didn't break. This scene left Enel completely dumbfounded. What was going on? What kind of material was this? It actually withstood his piercing strike. As Enel reeled in shock, Veer moved again. At this moment, Enel was still maintaining his forward charging stance. His body was still lunging forward with full force. The ultra-thin membrane was continuously being tested under pressure. In this state, he had no way to retreat. This was exactly what Veer wanted. A state where Enel was still charging and unable to pull back. Holding on to both ends, Veer had already used observation haki to predict the exact point of Enel's thrust. Here it comes! Veer shouted, gripping both sides tightly before swiftly throwing it over Enel's head. This guy liked to call himself a god. If he got caught in this, wouldn't he completely break down mentally? The negative emotions would surely skyrocket. As he watched the object descend towards his head, Enel froze. What was this? What was happening? Wait! I can't dodge this! As the ultra-thin material expanded, Enel suddenly recognized what it was. Wasn't this? His eyes widened, his expression filled with sheer horror. But that wasn't all. When he saw what was smeared inside it, he was completely dumbstruck. This? Oh no! Brother! This is no joke! Indeed! The medical kit had enchanted this thing. As for how the enchantment worked, that was unspeakable. Enel instantly erupted with immense physical prowess. He immediately let go of his weapon, which was nearly fully enveloped inside. He forcibly twisted his body, attempting to evade the trap. But could he escape? Every movement he made was completely exposed under Veer's observation haki. Dodge? Where are you dodging to? Seeing that Veer had already anticipated his movements. Realizing that he had no way to avoid this, Enel was truly breaking down. Despair rapidly spread throughout his entire being. His face was filled with terror. I'm doomed. I'm doomed. I am a god. How dare you, you lowly mortal! Enel roared in desperation. Too much talk. Veer didn't care about his nonsense. He acted immediately. Enel was instantly trapped inside. As soon as he made contact with the enchanted object. At first, he froze, then suddenly went wild, grabbing his weapon and attacking frantically. Lightning poured out of him like there was no tomorrow. Inside the enclosure, it became blindingly radiant. But soon, Enel fell into despair. Neither his high temperatures, his piercing strikes, nor his lightning could break through. This situation was already terrible. But what made it worse was that the enchantment didn't dissipate under his lightning. At this point, the enchantment was driving him insane. He was a god. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Just a few seconds in, and he was already on the verge of collapse. Damn it! Damn you, mortal! How dare you treat a god like this? Blag! Enel shouted while gagging. But Veer didn't care. He was grinning from ear to ear. Ding! Congratulations host, you have gained 6,000 negative points. Ding! Congratulations host, you have gained 4,000 negative points. Ding! Gripping the only exit tightly, Veer was shocked upon hearing the system's notification. How much? 10,000? Whoa! He hadn't even finished yet, and it was already skyrocketing. Is this the power of the Thunder God? He loved it. He wasn't sure what was happening inside, but from the way Enel was puking, it was clearly unpleasant. Looking at Enel's face, which looked like he had just eaten a ton of crap, Veer couldn't help but feel a little sorry for him. Let's wait a bit before hitting him again. He's too pitiful. Veer definitely wasn't just waiting for the negative points to max out before continuing. Chapter 67, Fear. Veer waited for quite a while before the system's notification sounds gradually subsided. He had originally planned to launch an attack on Enel, but when he turned his head to look, this guy already looked like a dead man. Seemed like he had passed out. And very peacefully at that. Veer made a preliminary judgment, this was likely the body's self-protection mechanism kicking in. If this continued, Enel might actually die from sheer disgust. So, to preserve his life, his body just forcefully shut down. Directly unplugged the power. Well, that work too saved him the trouble of having to make another move. Now he could get started on treatment immediately. Good. But he wasn't in a hurry just yet. First, he picked up a brick and gave Enel a good whack. A little anesthesia to keep him lying down. He had to check on the two little brothers who had been electrocuted first. As for how to treat Enel, Veer planned to start with a chainsaw thoracotomy. Time to test out his newly purchased chainsaw. Fear. Function, stimulates the patient's deepest fears. Price, 11,000 points. Review, whenever it roars, fear follows. The others, seeing the situation settle down, quickly rushed over to check on things. But just as they were halfway there, they saw Veer holding a brick and viciously slamming it down on the unconscious Enel. Bang! The sound was loud, Everyone's hearts trembled. But that wasn't all. Veer actually raised the brick again and smashed it down several more times. The repeated bang 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 sounds, combined with the full force he was putting into each strike, made everyone look at Veer with pure terror. This guy was already unconscious. Why was Veer still smashing him? But after a few hits, Veer confirmed something. Hitting Enel through that half-millimeter film wasn't effective. He had to pull him out first. Watching the large bump slowly rise on Enel's forehead, Veer felt a bit apologetic. Sorry, it'll be over soon. Saying that, Veer opened the exit. And pulled Enel out. He had already confirmed earlier this guy was truly out cold, heart rate nearly stopping. Veer, with a look of disdain, wiped off the stuff that had accidentally gotten on him, then slammed the brick into Enel's head again. Another loud bang. This time, it finally worked. Enel regained consciousness on the spot. His mind cleared up, and as he took in his surroundings, though still a bit dazed, he immediately reacted. Electric arcs flickered within him, coursing through his body. Finally, they reached his heart. He was about to shock himself back into action. But just as the current reached his heart, ready to strike, the electric arc suddenly disappeared. What? What was going on? Meanwhile, in the outside world, Veer was stuffing a piece of sea stone into Enel's nostril. Feeling the thunderous energy that had just surged now gradually fading, Veer nodded in satisfaction. Originally, he had wanted to shove it into Enel's mouth, but the guy was too strong. Whatever, same effect no matter where he put it. But this was pure suffering for Enel. The sudden disappearance of his electricity made his heart sink. Even now, he maintained the arrogance of a god. He believed Veer was still no match for him, only won by trickery. But now, that didn't matter. His current state was truly terrible. Enel realized this as well. And he was panicking a little. It wasn't the pain that concerned him. He had suffered countless hardships before. What he truly feared, was Veer doing something weird to him. After all, anyone who used that kind of thing couldn't be normal. If that was really the case, he just wanted to die quickly. After finishing up, Veer stood up. Noticing the strange looks from the others, he was a bit confused. Why were they looking at him like that? Like he was some kind of pervert? What happened? Though puzzled, Veer still called out to Chopper. Chopper, wash off the lubricant on this guy. I'll go check on Zoro and Sanji. Saying that, Veer pulled out a large bucket of water and set it on the ground. Then he walked toward Zoro. Hearing this, Chopper hurried over and started following Veer's instructions. Robin also came over to help pour water. Chopper looked at the strange substance covering Enel and suddenly understood. Oh, so this stuff is lubricant. Meanwhile, Raki and the others looked at Veer even more strangely. They knew exactly what that stuff was. But Veer actually called it lubricant. Did he really use this as lubricant? That was terrifying. Watching Veer walk toward Zoro, Nami and the others suddenly remembered that those two were still gravely injured. Nami and Usopp quickly ran over, their faces full of concern as they watched Veer examine them. Just moments ago, Zoro and Sanji had taken the hit to protect them. Now, they were feeling immense guilt. Because if nothing changed, those two were definitely doomed. Sanji's injuries are more severe. Zoro is in better shape. But neither are fatal. We'll take them back for treatment later. Veer grinned brightly, and as soon as he finished speaking, Nami and Usopp shuddered. Oh no, those two were really doomed. Even the unconscious duo twitched slightly, as if protesting something. Or perhaps trying to express something. That they were fine? It didn't matter. Veer would make sure they were fine. Asterisk squeeze squeeze squeeze. Asterisk. It's done, boss. Chopper's voice came from behind. Veer acknowledged it and soon arrived in front of Enel. Enel, sensing Veer's approach, felt his heart sink again. Just now, Chopper washing him had almost moved him to tears. That strange sensation all over his body had made him want to die. He actually found this little reindeer quite nice. But he barely had 2 seconds to be happy before Veer showed up again. That made him instantly nervous. This guy had put him through all this. What exactly did he want? Before he could figure that out, he couldn't rest easy. At this moment, only Chopper knew what Veer was about to do. His master always said. In his eyes, there were only patients. No enemies. Boss, are you going to treat him? He's really badly hurt. Chopper asked, even though he had a good guess. But Enel found the question unbelievable. Treat me? Impossible. Of course he's badly hurt, I'd know best. Step aside, I'm about to start. What? He's really going to save me? Enel was truly confused now. Beat me half to death, then save me? What was the point of all this? Even though he didn't get it, he felt a bit relieved. He could still feel intense pain throughout his body. Especially in his lungs. Every breath was agonizing. This guy must have realized he offended the god of thunder and was trying to make amends. Humph. Since he was so sincere. Asterisk VRRRRRRR. Asterisk. The roaring of a chainsaw shattered Enel's thoughts. No one noticed that even though he was unconscious, cold sweat had already begun pouring from his forehead and back. Chapter 68, The Brave Captain. Enel looked utterly devastated as he stared at Veer, who was holding a chainsaw. What the hell was this guy planning? That chainsaw looked older than he was. He should just be planning to cut some trees, right? Even if it wasn't for trees. There's no way it's for treatment, right? No worries, he said he was going to treat me, so the chainsaw definitely has nothing to do with me. Veer, holding the chainsaw, was searching for the right place to make his cut. The injuries Enel suffered were all internal. Hardly any external wounds. He knew exactly how he got injured, he did it to himself. For internal injuries, he actually had a bold idea. A very new one. Something completely unprecedented. He'd try it on this kid and see how it worked. Arc welder. Function, welding. Price, 20,000 points. Review, this is a welding machine that can operate in any environment. It reaches extreme temperatures that no human can withstand. Hey? Why specify humans? Veer first used a marker to draw incision lines on Enel's chest. This process alone made Enel's heart skip a beat. It wasn't until Veer lifted the chainsaw and violently sawed down along the designated line that Enel finally snapped to realization. It was really aimed at him. A searing pain instantly spread throughout his body. Fear engulfed him in an instant. And why fear? Ask yourself who could remain calm while watching their own chest get chainsawed open, flesh and blood flying everywhere. At this moment, the scene truly resembled cutting down a tree. Except, instead of wood chips flying from the chainsaw's rotation, it was crimson blood. The atmosphere turned brutal in an instant. Anyone watching would be left dumbfounded. Even Raki, who had been standing quite far away, still got splattered with blood. Seeing this horrifying spectacle, forget Enel even as a bystander, she was about to wet herself. Are you sure this is treatment? Aren't you the doctor from Saw or something? Using a chainsaw for surgery, this is a bit too much. Raki quickly fled from the area directly in front of Veer. She turned to look at the others, hoping to find some comfort in their expressions. But besides herself and Kamakiri, everyone else was surprisingly composed. Chopper looked completely unfazed. As the first one to follow Veer, his mental fortitude had been trained to extreme levels the day a 2 meters long needle got jabbed into his butt. Of course, this only applied to watching, not experiencing. Nami, Usopp, and Robin merely frowned. No major reactions. Nami and Usopp were understandable. But even Robin wasn't overly shaken. She had never witnessed something like this before. Such strong composure. Her adaptability was remarkable. Raki was stunned. Are you all this tough? Doesn't this horrifying scene shake you at all? Wait, does this mean they regularly endure such torture? Hiss. That's actually quite possible. I almost forgot this guy is their ship's doctor. And they dared to have him as their doctor. Damn. What the hell is wrong with your captain? Is he out of his mind? At this moment, Raki felt deep admiration for the captain of the Straw Hats. She just wanted to say, brave. Ding. Congratulations, host, you've gained negative points. Ding. Congratulations, host, you've gained 8,000 negative points. Ding. In just the time it took to open up Enel's chest, Veer had already earned over 20,000 negative points. His smile was bright, paired with the splatters of blood on his face. He successfully made everyone instinctively take another step back. So far, Enel, this great guy, had already provided Veer with 40,000 negative points. This was the first time he had ever harvested so many points from a single person. It seemed that to maximize negative points, one had to break through the target's psychological defenses. Enel's lofty and arrogant personality, paired with Veer's unique zero-empathy tactics, had led to this brilliant outcome. From now on, treatments and combat strategies must be tailored to the patient's personality. This would greatly improve efficiency in gaining negative points. The people nearby finally saw Veer stop and collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Their thoughts were surprisingly unified. Veer shouldn't be doing anything else weird now. Typically, his treatments were at their scariest at the beginning. Now that the chainsaw surgery was over, it should just be a quick checkup, right? Right? Meanwhile, the patient Enel was losing his mind. This guy had chainsawed him open fine. But he didn't even use anesthesia. Can you even imagine how that feels? Watching yourself get brutalized, but unable to move. And on top of that, not even using anesthesia? That stuff isn't expensive. If you can't afford it, I'll pay for it myself. I'll bring my own from home. By the time it was all done, he was on the verge of death from pain. At last, the horrifying chainsaw noise ceased. Was it finally over? Just as he thought, all that was left was fixing his chest cavity, resetting his bones, and stitching up his wound. Veer moved again. He grabbed hold of the rib that was piercing Enel's lung and tried to pull it out directly. But he failed. Enel's fast healing had already caused the flesh to completely enclose the rib. That single attempt alone made Enel want to bash his head into a wall. In his subconscious state, he kept screaming in agony, trying to vent his pain. It hurts like hell. My God, damn it. Stop. Just when he finally managed to catch his breath, he switched his consciousness back to the outside world, only to see a big foot coming straight for his face. At the same time, a hand once again gripped his rib. Watching Veer adjust his stance and prepare to exert force, Enel completely lost it. This is gonna hurt. Before long. Squelch! The rib was yanked out. At this moment, Enel swore that he loved Veer. He vowed that as soon as he recovered, he would fry this bastard to a crisp. And then, Veer reached into his little box and pulled out a big device. As everyone got a clear look, confusion filled their faces. What was that? The walking encyclopedia, Robin, spoke up. That's an arc welder, used to repair and fuse metal. It melts or softens iron with high heat, then uses molten metal from welding rods to join separate pieces together. After hearing her explanation, everyone understood its function. But knowing what it did didn't explain what Veer planned to do with it. Was this also for treatment? Wasn't it only meant for metal? Just as they were puzzled, a horrifying thought struck them. Veer had a certain ability. An ability that could turn anything into steel. He had already used it to protect the Going Merry. And steel could definitely be melted and fused with this device. Hey? No way. Was he really planning to do that? If this worked, what would it feel like for the victim? At that moment, they all felt a chill. Because if it did succeed, the ones to suffer most would be them. Now, all they could do was close their eyes and pray. Pray that Veer's idea wouldn't work. Chapter 69, It probably doesn't hurt. Right? Even Enel was a bit confused. What the hell is this guy planning to do with that thing? Did he used to be a welder or something? But there's no metal here for him to weld. So what's he trying to do? Just as Enel was puzzled, the rib that Veer was gripping suddenly took on an iron-like color. It was as if it had turned into steel. Crap! Enel instantly realized what was happening. This guy, he must be a devil fruit user. He can turn whatever he touches into steel. I'm so screwed. Someone, help me. I just wanna die right now. But with his body half paralyzed from getting smacked by that brick, all he could do was twitch his fingers a couple of times. Resistance? Pointless. Yeah, this was exactly Veer's plan. Turn broken bones or open wounds into steel, then use his welding skills to repair them. Before he became a veterinarian in his past life, he worked as a welder. His technique was top-notch. To be honest, his steel transformation ability had quite a few limitations. Turning inanimate objects into steel? Easy. But when it came to living beings, if they were weak, sure, no problem. But if they had armament haki, his ability wouldn't work at all. Haki completely nullified it. And if they were weak, turning their body into steel might even make them stronger. This power was only useful against those with absurd physical durability. Your body's tougher than diamond? Fine, I'll turn you into steel. But strong fighters all had Haki. So Veer never really considered using this ability in battle. But for medical treatment? Combined with welding? Now that was something. People knocked out by his bricks wouldn't be using Haki, right? Perfect. From now on, he wouldn't need to do any stitching. Everything could be welded. Thinking this, Veer didn't hesitate anymore. He pressed his hand against Enel's broken rib. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the shattered bone actually transformed into steel. We're done for. We're absolutely done for, Nami. Usopp screamed in terror, his voice filled with panic. Calm down. But Nami immediately cut him off before he could go any further. Maybe it doesn't hurt at all. Let's wait and see. Even she didn't sound convinced. Hearing this, the others refocused on what was happening in the center. Not hurt? Veer let out a chuckle. What a joke. The item description was crystal clear. No one could withstand its heat. If you got welded by this thing, consider yourself lucky. Veer picked up the bundle of black wires attached to the welding machine and found the starting point. There, 3 electrical wires were waiting to be connected. Nice. 3-phase power. This thing could work anywhere, except without electricity. But wasn't there a literal thunder god right here? Veer grabbed the exposed copper wires and wrapped them directly around Enel's arm. With that set up, he walked over to the welding machine and flipped the switch. Buzz! The welding machine hummed to life. Great! It had power. It was ready to go. Chopper! Now powered up, Veer called Chopper over and handed him the ground wire. Hold on to this. Wherever I turn something into steel, press this end against it. Otherwise, it won't spark. Got it. MHM. Chopper nodded seriously, his face full of concentration. Veer then picked up the welding torch, pulled out a welding rod from the pack sent by the system, and fitted it in. Next, he reached into his medical kit and pulled out a pair of dark welding goggles. He put them on himself. Then took out a smaller pair and fitted them onto Chopper. No need to cover his face, he was still wearing a hood. And Chopper's thick fur would protect him. Otherwise, that intense light could scorch their skin. Veer's movements were practiced and natural, just like an experienced site worker. Nami and the others were dumbfounded. Veer actually knew how to weld? And at such a professional level? Great, just great. Now they had to acknowledge. Veer had gained yet another skill. At this rate, one day, this guy alone would be an entire pirate crew. How was that fair? Even Robin was surprised as she observed Veer. In the world of pirates, welding was a rare skill. It was practically a trade job. After all, most pirate ships were wooden. Even the best ones just had superior craftsmanship and materials. To her, Veer now carried an extra layer of mystery. Just how many abilities did this man have hidden? With everything ready, Veer finally got to work. His movements were quick, precise, and firm. The welding rod struck the fractured rib. A blinding light burst forth. The glare made everyone squint involuntarily. Only Robin looked away. And she didn't warn the others. The dazzling flashes continued as Enel's wound softened, then melted, before fusing back together on its own. Thick smoke billowed from the repair site. Chopper even started coughing. From a distance, anyone would think they were barbecuing something over here. Before long, the broken rib was fully reattached. Veer removed his goggles and inspected the weld. Satisfied, he nodded. The joint was smooth and seamless. Unless someone looked closely, they wouldn't even notice it had been welded. It had been a while since he last welded anything, yet his skills were still top-notch. Who knew he was still this good? Just then, the steel transformation wore off. The rib gradually returned to its original ivory-white state. Chopper's eyes widened in disbelief. Big bro! It's really fixed. And you can't even see any flaws. He knocked on the rib as a test. Whoa! It's super sturdy. Just like it was never broken. This is amazing. Enel, arigato. Once again, Enel had contributed tens of thousands of negative points to Veer. The feeling of being welded? It was agony that seeped into his bones. Literally. The searing pain nearly killed him. He never imagined that getting burned could hurt this much. Maybe it was because the burn was inside his body? Either way, it was pure hell. Enel had cursed Veer's entire ancestry in his heart. His so-called divine pride had long been tossed aside. He just wanted this nightmare to end. This place was way too dangerous. He never wanted to be here again. But his wails were useless. Veer resumed welding. The flashes continued. Negative points flooded in non-stop. The entire process took about 20 minutes. At last, the thick smoke settled. Ding! Congratulations, host! You have acquired the ability, Thunder Control. Thunder Control, you can generate and manipulate lightning. Tisk! It finally happened. All that effort wasn't for nothing. He had worked so hard just for this. Hey, Nami! It was too bright earlier, I couldn't see. Did it hurt? Usopp asked Nami, who was standing nearby. If it's normal for an unconscious person to twitch constantly, then I guess it didn't hurt. Nami replied, her voice trembling. Chapter 70, He tripped? Chopper. Well done. To be so skilled on your first try, you've got quite the talent. Veer praised Chopper, who was staring at Enel's chest in shock. After speaking, Veer began tidying up his tools. Chopper was completely in awe of the miraculous treatment method he had just witnessed. Hearing Veer's praise, he froze for a moment. Then, bastard, even if you praise me like that, I won't be happy about it. Chopper twisted his body shyly, his face beaming with joy. Wait, it's already done. Raki spoke up, unsure. Everything that had just happened was too shocking. Her brain momentarily stopped processing. Now that things had calmed down, she finally started to react. Not only was she amazed by Veer's swift, efficient, and ruthless treatment method, but what truly stunned her was the fact that Enel, the very being regarded as a taboo by all of Skypia, whose name none dared to speak aloud, had been taken down just like that. He was lightning. The embodiment of lightning itself. Even if all of Skypia's people joined forces, they might not be able to scratch him. And yet, that invincible existence had been defeated in such a short time. Defeated for real. If Enel somehow survived this, he probably wouldn't dare step foot here again. Psychological trauma is a powerful thing. If she had gone through what Enel just experienced, she might have just died from sheer pain. As soon as she spoke, the others also came to their senses. Yet, that was way too fast and easy, wasn't it? This was Veer? A terrifying yet incredibly reliable guy. Veer was just too strong. Not only did he defeat Enel, the same Enel who had instantly taken down Zoro and Sanji in an extremely short time, but he also gave him both physical and psychological torment along the way. So this is what happens to Veer's enemies? Absolutely terrifying. What's wrong? Are you a doctor too? No one could have handled these injuries better than me. In less than a day, this guy will be up and running again. Veer took a rotten apple from his medical kit, took a bite, and looked at Raki with confusion. He thought she was questioning his medical skills. Joking aside, he was a professional. Now that Enel was taken care of, there was nothing left on Skypia that could pose a threat to them. His objective was achieved. The power of lightning was now in his hands. All that was left was to wait here for a day or two until the log pose fully charged, then they could set sail. Their next stop was a marine fortress. Under normal circumstances, the Going Merry would land right in the center of the fortress. Then the crew would have to go through all sorts of trouble to escape. But there wasn't really any reason to go there. There was nothing of value there to him. No strong opponents, no rare abilities. Going there would just be a waste of time. Maybe he could figure out a way to modify the Going Merry and bypass that marine fortress altogether. That would save a lot of time. Beyond the marine fortress lay Long Ring Long Land, his real target. Foxy's no me. That was another broken ability. One he absolutely had to obtain. Veer had a hunch that the system would make it even more broken. Maybe it would even grant him time stop powers. Time stop. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Even if it wasn't full time stop, it wouldn't be far off. It was definitely time related. And anything that even slightly involved time was bound to be overpowered. Once he got his hands on it, his power would skyrocket. Once the Going Merry was modified, there wouldn't be much else to do. He could work on mastering his control over lightning while waiting for the log pose. Meanwhile, Raki, hearing Veer's words, instantly tensed up. She quickly waved her hands and replied, "No. No. Your medical skills are, of course, the best in the world. I was just shocked at how fast the treatment was." She was genuinely afraid that Veer would think she was challenging him and then beat her up before treating her. If that happened, she'd rather just run headfirst into a wall and end it all. Cough, 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 cough. A bout of coughing came from behind the group. Everyone turned to see Ganfall slowly sitting up. He had been the first to be struck down by lightning. But since his Pegasus had absorbed a significant portion of the damage, he regained consciousness before Zoro and the others. As the former god of Skypia, his willpower was considerable. The moment he regained awareness, he forced his trembling body to stand up. Then he started looking around for Enel. After scanning the area, his eyes finally landed on Enel's motionless body at Veer's feet. But now, he seemed to be dead. This shocked Ganfall. Enel, dead? How? At that moment, Enel's chest rose and fell ever so slightly. He was still alive, but barely. This. Severely injured and unconscious? Ganfall realized it immediately. Enel had been defeated by someone. How long had he been unconscious? Who was capable of beating Enel? At this moment, Ganfall desperately wanted to know the answer. Enel had been too powerful. He had no idea who could possibly defeat him here. Looking at the standing figures before him, he asked in a slightly trembling voice. "Was it you who defeated him?" As soon as he spoke, chaos erupted around them. The sound of rushing footsteps filled the air as people arrived one after another. Most of them were Shandayans who had come with Whipper. The rest were Enel's god's army. These soldiers immediately recognized Ganfall. They had once served under him. It was only under Enel's rule that they were forced to work for him. Enel's true subordinates were just his high-ranking officers, those he had brought from his homeland. And now, those officers were either dead or gravely injured. "Lord Ganfall! You've returned. It's really you. Have you come to reclaim the title of God?" The soldiers were ecstatic, as if they had just seen their long-lost father. Meanwhile, the Shandayans were crowding around Kamakiri, who was carrying an unconscious Whipper. "What happened? What's wrong with Whipper? He looks seriously injured. Who did this? Who else? It must have been Enel. Where is he? Let's finish him together. He dared to hurt Whipper? We must avenge him." The Shandayans were furious. But Raki and Kamakiri were scared out of their minds. "Guys! Please, no. This isn't revenge, you're just marching to your deaths. Veer's strength. If you charge at him, in 3 seconds, not a single one of you will be left standing. This is suicide." "No. No. He wasn't beaten up. He, tripped. Yet. I saw it too. He just fell and hit his head." The two of them quickly covered it up. They had to stop these walking time bombs before they all got wiped out. The Shandayans looked at Whipper's unconscious face, which bore a deep shoe print, and fell into deep thought. He tripped? Where the hell did he trip to end up like this? His skull looked like it was cracked open. That was one hell of a fall. Chapter 71, Thank goodness. I'm not injured. Also, Enel has been defeated. Raki spoke up again. Hearing this, the group finally noticed Enel lying on the ground. Seeing him unconscious, everyone's faces lit up with excitement. This was the greatest obstacle to reclaiming their homeland. Now, he was finally defeated. Who was it? Was it the two of you? Did you defeat Enel? So strong. I never expected you two to be hiding such power. That's right. Looks like the position of elders belongs to you two now. Praises and exclamations of surprise erupted, all marveling at the two's strength. But the two of them were dumbfounded. Us? Defeat Enel? As much as they didn't want to admit it. They couldn't even handle a single dog. Defeat Enel? Yeah, right. On the other side, the god's army also noticed their fallen god. They were equally shocked and turned to look at Ganfall. My lord. Was it you who took care of this guy? Yes. Your strength has improved once again. Amazing, my lord. Now you can lead us once more. That's right. This is wonderful. Another round of praises left Ganfall feeling a bit awkward. Because he didn't even know who had done it. The moment Enel released his electricity, he was knocked out. He had no idea what had happened after that. It wasn't me. I am not his match, Ganfal said dejectedly. The difference in strength between him and Enel was too great. He couldn't even leave a scratch on the guy. What? It wasn't you? Then who was it? Who could have such power? That's right. You're the strongest here. If it wasn't you, then who? Ganfal also wanted to know the answer to that question. Friends, could you tell me who was responsible for this? Ganfal asked Nami and the others with a calm yet slightly pleading tone. Hearing this, everyone turned their gazes towards them. The stares made them feel a bit uneasy. But someone immediately stood up. It was him. Usopp leaped behind Veer and pushed him forward. He's the one who defeated Enel. And he did it in just 3 moves. How awesome is that? He's our ship's doctor. Usopp looked proud, as if he had done it himself. However, everyone else was stunned. They looked at Veer, who was so young, dressed in simple white coat, and wearing a pair of oversized flip-flops. Their faces showed clear surprise. This guy doesn't look special at all. Well, except for being quite handsome. At this moment, Veer had already put away his battle armor. He was back to his usual attire. Him? Defeat Enel? Really? That young? And in just 3 moves? That wasn't just a defeat. That was complete domination. Was his strength really that incredible? Everyone was completely shocked. Their faces displayed a mix of emotions. They had no doubts about the claim because even Raki stepped forward to confirm it. Enel had truly been defeated by this young man. Ganfal looked at Veer's calm and handsome face, and his own expression filled with shock. Domination. That word kept rising in his mind. Veer's immense strength was becoming clear to him. There was nothing more to say. This young man had done him a huge favor. And not just him, he had helped all of Skypia. Ganfal immediately stood up and, with difficulty, walked up to Veer. Veer was speechless. He had already seen this coming. This scene felt all too familiar. Come on. Not this again. This was embarrassing. Ganfal was just about to kneel on one knee when he caught sight of Veer's exasperated expression. He quickly stopped himself and decisively changed it to a bow. Young man. Thank you for everything you've done for Skypia. Seeing this, Veer's expression finally eased up a bit. The last thing he wanted was people kneeling to him. That was seriously awkward. That's right. Veer, big brother, with Enel defeated, we Shandians can finally return to our homeland. We are truly grateful to you. Raki said sincerely. All right, enough with the words. You guys. Go find all the gold in your homeland. I'll be taking it. Nami, you're in charge of this. And you. Gather some dials for me and send them to the altar. Oh, and bring those 2 along as well. After saying that, Veer grabbed Chopper and headed towards the ship. Robin chuckled softly and followed behind him. He still had to modify the ship. No time to waste on idle chatter. Veer's words left everyone stunned. Big sis, should we do as he says? After a long silence, someone finally spoke up. Raki snapped out of her daze and sighed, looking in the direction Veer had disappeared. Do it. Why wouldn't we? Do you want to experience his welding? Everyone. Move out and find the gold. Raki glared at the one who asked, then waved her hand, leading everyone off. Nami, meanwhile, was already in full treasure hunting mode. She closely followed the group, with only one thought in her mind. Gold. 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 Seeing this, Usopp, worried she might trip and fall, quickly followed after her. My lord? What about us? On the other side, the God's army soldiers looked at Ganfal. Go. Collect the dials. And bring those 2 to our benefactor. Spread the news to all of Skypia. They no longer have to live in fear. Yes, sir. Very soon, the entire group scattered, leaving only the devastated Enel behind. Just you wait. Just wait until I get back up. I will. I will definitely. Run away. Veer and the others walked through the forest for a long time before finally reaching the Going Merry. Should have asked Ganfal for a guide. Just as they arrived, a voice rang out. Yo-ho-ho. Veer, where have you guys been? It's getting late. They turned to see a figure in a straw hat sitting on the ship, looking at them. Why is he here? Before long, Zoro and Sanji were brought back by Ganfal's men. Not long after, Nami and Usopp also returned, escorted by Riki. Nami was hugging a huge sack of unknown items. Her appearance had changed dramatically. She was decked out in gold jewelry, wearing an absurd amount of golden accessories. If you didn't look closely, you might think some Buddhist deity had run away from home. She was shining like a golden statue. Ha ha ha. Veer. We hit the jackpot. Do you know how much gold there is? A whole city of it. I'm going back for more tomorrow. Nami's grin was practically splitting her face. Veer, do you know how to cook? I'm starving. Luffy didn't care about the gold. He just knew it was dinner time. Hearing this, Veer realized he was hungry too. I actually don't know how to cook. Hearing this, Luffy's face fell in disappointment. But then Veer added, but I can make someone who can cook get up right now. Luffy watched as Veer dragged Zoro and Sanji inside and immediately looked relieved. Thank goodness. I'm not injured. Chapter 72, I have a rare disease. Since it was already late last night, the news only spread the next morning. The entire Angel Island quickly learned of it. At first, when they saw the gods' army arriving, they were all terrified. After all, Enel would never send his soldiers to bring good news. They were already prepared to kneel in submission, but instead, the gods' army soldier loudly declared Enel's defeat. Enel is gone. His powerful voice echoed in everyone's ears. At first, the people thought they were hearing things, but when they saw the soldiers' excited expression and realized the absence of divine punishment, they understood. Enel, that wicked god, was truly history. The entire island fell silent for several minutes. Then, a single cheer shattered the stillness. We are free. That shout pulled everyone back to reality. What followed was an eruption of cheers and cries of joy. We're free. We are truly free. No one will monitor us anymore. It's real. We don't have to fear sudden divine punishment. Ha ha ha. Ha ha wah. Almost everyone wept with joy, celebrating as if they had been reborn. But in the midst of the crowd, the angelic girl who had helped Luffy suddenly thought of something. She looked at the ecstatic soldier with urgency and asked, who defeated him? Was it that pirate crew who arrived before? Was it their captain? At that moment, all she could think of were Luffy's words before they parted. We'll rescue Veer. And if anyone gets in our way, I'll punch them into the sky. Luffy's smiling face kept flashing in her mind. Hearing her question, the crowd fell into silence once more. Yes, Enel was so powerful. Who could have possibly done this? Was there really someone that strong on Skypia? No, it wasn't him. The soldier's words made Coney's freeze. Not Luffy? Then who? It was the doctor on their ship, a young man named Veer. Upon hearing this, everyone's first reaction was to express their gratitude. A huge crowd immediately surrounded the soldier, eager to know where Veer was. The soldier told them everything but also mentioned that Veer didn't like to be disturbed. Hearing this, the crowd reluctantly held back, though their gratitude toward him remained unwavering. Enel had done far too much harm to them. Speaking against the so-called god meant immediate execution. Now that he had been defeated by this young man named Veer, their gratitude was immeasurable. Only Coney stood frozen in place, her face filled with disbelief. Luffy and the others had come to rescue Veer. But Veer's strength, it seemed like he didn't need rescuing at all. Even Enel, the strongest being on Skypia, wasn't his match. A ship's doctor, how could he be this powerful? At that moment, Coney's perception of what a doctor could be changed completely. Oi Zoro! Sanji! Why are you two just sitting here? Let's go on an adventure together. Luffy grinned as he called out to his two beaten-down crewmates, who sat side by side in defeat. But the two of them looked utterly lifeless. Their faces clearly said, I want to die, don't talk to me. But Luffy didn't care. He stretched out his arms and grabbed them both. In the blink of an eye, they had vanished from their spot. Meanwhile, Nami had already taken Usopp out with her. There was still a huge pile of gold waiting for them. Yesterday's haul was just a tiny fraction of it. Before leaving, Usopp put up a weak protest because Nami had made him carry too much the previous day. He was exhausted. As usual, he fell back on his classic excuse. I have a rare disease that makes me die the moment I step onto an island. Let me stay on the ship. His voice trembled weakly as he spoke. But as soon as he finished, another voice rang out. Who's sick? Veer, who had been nearby studying the mechanics of winged flight, instantly looked up. His eyes gleamed with sharp focus as he locked onto Usopp. That gaze was full of predatory intent. Usopp took one look and forget his island sickness. Even if he had dementia, it would have been cured on the spot. He immediately hoisted Nami onto his back and dashed away like the wind. As he ran, he shouted, "I'm fine. I'm healed. You're an amazing doctor, Veer. Thank you. Don't run. Let Veer treat you properly." From afar, Nami's teasing voice echoed. Robin watched the scene unfold, finding it amusing. On this ship, getting sick was not something to be taken lightly. Soon, only 2 people and 1 reindeer remained on board. Robin mentioned that she wanted to explore the ancient ruins and asked Chopper to accompany her. She also invited Veer, but he declined. He still had things to do. Once they left, only Veer remained. He looked at the book in his hands, his gaze thoughtful. Winged flight is pretty cool. But I'm going with a glider instead. He had to admit, wings were just too complicated to use. He decided not to make things harder for himself. Instead, he planned to use some of the gold Nami brought back to build a golden glider. Once he installed it on the Going Merry, it would be as stable as could be. Last night, after healing Sanji and Zoro's injuries, the system rewarded him with 2 new abilities. One was Sanji's cooking skills, and the other was Zoro's alcohol tolerance. Honestly, it was an eye-opener. It seemed that if he kept absorbing abilities from the same person, he'd start getting some, less practical ones. Not that it mattered, there would be plenty more chances in the future. Last night, Veer tested his newly obtained lightning abilities. And the only way to describe them was, ridiculously strong. The abilities functioned just like those of the Rumble fruit. Except he couldn't turn into lightning himself. But his main goal was to gain control over electricity, anyway. Not only could he discharge lightning, but he could also imbue it into his attacks. Both his damage output and speed saw a significant boost. Most importantly, after gaining this ability, he could sense and manipulate the surrounding lightning elements with ease. Well, that might sound obvious. Every Logia-type user could control their element. But his elemental affinity was exceptionally high. And that made all the difference. If Enel's 100-million volt attack dealt 10 points of damage, then Veer's would deal 17 or even 18. That gap was no small difference. And it wasn't just about attack power. His speed, range, paralysis effect, and armor penetration were all vastly improved. For small-scale attacks, the difference might not be too noticeable, but for large-scale or high-powered single-target moves, the disparity would be immense. After his experiments last night, Veer successfully developed a devastating single-target attack. A technique that compressed a massive amount of lightning and then released it in an instant, surging forward in a straight line. Simple, precise, and unbelievably powerful. If he combined this with his triple damage boost, the destruction would be unimaginable. Chapter 73, Hello. It is worth mentioning that lightning significantly enhances observation haki. Not in terms of range, that would be practically useless. Rather, it enhances the overall quality. It allows Veer's observation haki to not only hear the sounds emitted by an opponent's body but even perceive the thoughts in their mind. Both the electrical signals from the body and brain waves can be easily detected by him. Brain waves are also a form of electricity. Veer's sensitivity to electricity has now reached a terrifying level. As he watched the arcs of lightning dance between his fingers, a desire to test his abilities surged within him. Yesterday, he had only conducted a small-scale experiment. He hadn't gone all out. Now, however, seemed like the perfect time. With that thought, Veer began condensing lightning onto his index finger. As time passed, his fingertip grew brighter and brighter. However, Veer couldn't help but frown. It was too bright, anyone could see that he was preparing to attack. This wouldn't do. He needed to find a way to conceal the glow in the future. As he pondered this, the lightning in his fingertip was finally compressed to completion. It took about 8 seconds. By now, terrifying waves of energy radiated around Veer. Ripples appeared in the air, a sign of extreme heat. Reaching the peak of his power, Veer didn't hesitate any longer. He casually pointed toward a massive vine in the distance. After a brief silence, a beam of concentrated lightning burst forth. Its power was immense, yet its width was as thin as a finger. However, as it traveled, the beam seemed to expand. Beneath the massive vine, Enel finally opened his eyes after lying unconscious for an entire day. His injuries and the anesthetic's effects had completely worn off. The moment he opened his eyes, he instinctively prepared to flee, but just as he lifted his head, a devastating lightning strike grazed past his face and struck the vine behind him. Feeling the sheer dominance and strength of that lightning, Enel was left utterly stunned. 3 seconds later. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. A deafening explosion erupted. Enel stared in shock at the colossal vine crashing down before him. He then glanced at his slightly singed nose and the strands of burnt hair on his head, his expression slowly turning into one of disbelief. What just happened? Who unleashed such a powerful lightning strike? That vine was at least 100 meters thick. Yet, under that attack, a massive chunk of it had simply vanished. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. The most terrifying realization was, lightning had hurt him? He was the embodiment of lightning itself. Yet now, he had been harmed by lightning? Impossible. Who did this? Enel immediately activated his mantra. His eyes darted toward the direction of the attack. And there he saw his nightmare, casually blowing on his smoking fingertip. Him? It was him. He could control lightning as well. And he was stronger than Enel himself. This was impossible. At that moment, Enel felt his mind shatter. What was Veer made of? No. I can't stay here any longer. I need to get out of here. Without hesitation, Enel transformed into lightning and vanished on the spot. He bolted toward the airship he had spent years building. All he wanted now was to take off as quickly as possible. Veer, using observation haki, watched Enel disappear into the distance, as well as the now half-destroyed gigantic vine. He nodded in satisfaction. The power of this technique. It should be at least on the level of a vice admiral or higher. Though it consumed a lot of stamina. In a battle between evenly matched opponents, he might only be able to use it once. After all, enemies wouldn't just stand there and let him charge up. But when to use it is up to him. It could serve as a trump card or be used as a sneak attack. Both were excellent options. As for why he was able to hurt Enel? Naturally, it was due to elemental affinity. Having completed his experiment, Veer was in a great mood. Though his lightning abilities were the biggest gain this time, there were still other rewards. For example, the 40,000 negative points in his pocket. As well as a new chainsaw and an arc welder. Beyond that, the rest weren't worth mentioning. They weren't particularly useful. 40,000 negative points might sound like a lot, but in truth, it wasn't much at all. At least, not in Veer's eyes at this moment. Because what lay ahead was an extremely difficult challenge. With him here, going to the marine stronghold was no longer an option. The next destination, Long Ring Long Land, didn't just have Foxy with his unique ability. Kyuzan, that bastard, would also be drawn there by Robin's presence. And he was an admiral. An admiral. Veer's overall strength was at most on par with a vice admiral. Maybe slightly stronger, but not by much. Against a seasoned admiral like Kyuzan, he had no chance of winning. The best case scenario? Getting beaten to a pulp and thrown into prison. Sure, in the original story, Kyuzan didn't seem to have any malice. But he couldn't rely on the original story for everything. After all, he had taken out Crocodile. Who's to say Kyuzan wouldn't find him troublesome and decide to capture him? He could choose to avoid the encounter. Leave for a while. If he wasn't on the ship, he wouldn't meet Kyuzan. But wouldn't that be a waste? Why? Because it's an admiral. None of their abilities were weak. If he could somehow manipulate the situation and take Kyuzan down for treatment. The power he would gain from that would be beyond imagination. Yes, it was dangerous. But it was also an opportunity. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He had to prepare in advance. And how? Aside from the system, was there any other way? No. Absolutely not. Which was why 40,000 negative points didn't seem like much. An admiral. Tisk tisk tisk. First, he had to finish dealing with the Going Mary's situation, then focus on shopping in the system. He had to find something affordable and capable of countering Kyuzan completely. If he could find it. This would be a free power boost. With that in mind, Veer pulled out a manual detailing glider construction. After scheming through it, he roughly grasped the principles and structure. That was enough. Using the gold Nami brought back yesterday, Veer started his experiment. He made a small prototype first. With Veer's continuous adjustments, it wasn't long before a decent-looking glider began to take shape. Looking at this glider that wasn't much different from the one in the book, Veer nodded in satisfaction. When descending, there will be a octopus hot air balloon, and when it runs out of air, he can just shape a larger one. Pretty simple, right? Just as Veer was feeling smug about his crafting skills, a sudden voice rang out. Hello. The voice was eerie, appearing without any warning. Chapter 74, I Can't Fix You. This sudden voice startled Veer. He instantly tensed up. Electric arcs flashed wildly in his eyes. Lightning surged in his hands, already charged and ready to strike. With just a single thought from Veer, the lightning would instantly tear the enemy apart. He quickly turned toward the source of the voice. But the moment he saw who it was, not only did he not attack, but he also let out a deep sigh of relief. The lightning in his hands dissipated, and his tense body relaxed. Standing on the deck not far away was a small, ethereal figure. It wore a cloak with an oversized hood that obscured its face. But Veer could tell it was smiling. This was, of course, the ship spirit of the Going Merry. Though its entrance had been utterly terrifying. Even Veer had been startled. With his highly advanced observation haki, he should have sensed any presence nearby. Yet, the voice had appeared from behind him out of nowhere. Who wouldn't be freaked out by that? Seeing that it was Merry, Veer naturally calmed down. He knew that the Going Merry had a ship spirit. But he hadn't realized that such beings couldn't be detected with observation haki. For a moment, he really thought he'd encountered a ghost. Looking at the tiny figure before him, Veer was intrigued. This was the first time he had seen a being like this. You're the ship spirit of the Merry, right? What are you made of? And why don't you make any sound when you move? Still shaken, Veer circled the little spirit several times, examining it closely like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. His words, however, surprised Merry. He actually knows me? What an incredible crewmate! Merry felt nothing but joy at this realization, completely ignoring the latter half of Veer's words. Yes. You actually recognize me. Merry's smile grew even brighter. It seemed to love being acknowledged. After circling the spirit a few times, Veer noted that it looked just like it did in the anime. So intangible. As if it had no physical form. Seeing Merry so happy, Veer decided against his earlier thought of dissecting the little spirit that had given him such a scare. Ship spirits weren't known to manifest voluntarily. For Merry to appear so openly, it must have something important to say. Did you need something from me, little Merry? After a brief moment of thought, Veer settled on this nickname. And indeed, Merry had something to ask of him. Yes. Merry spoke cheerfully, as if delighted that Veer could understand what it wanted. Then, it revealed its true concern. I can feel it. I'm reaching my limit. Hearing this, Veer instantly understood. Merry had realized that Veer's ability to reshape objects could affect it, so it had come to ask him for repairs. At most, I can carry everyone across 2 or 3 more islands. After that, I'll have no choice but to sink into the sea. But I still want to keep sailing with everyone. So, I want to ask you. Could you fix me? Make me sturdier? That way, maybe I can stay with everyone until the very end. By the time Merry finished speaking, its voice was filled with pleading. It truly wanted to sail with the crew to the very end. But its condition simply wouldn't allow it. However, over time, it had seen hope. It had noticed that Veer could easily repair its damaged parts. Even during battles on the ship, Veer would transform sections of it into steel to prevent damage from enemy attacks. These abilities were truly miraculous. And they gave Merry the hope of continuing to sail. That was why it had finally revealed itself. And why it had made this request of Veer. Looking at the little spirit before him, its voice now choked with emotion, Veer felt a pang of helplessness. Though he couldn't see Merry's eyes, he could sense the tears welling up in them as they looked at him. Could he fix it? The answer was yes. Having spent so much time aboard the Going Merry, he had grown attached to it. If he could prevent it from sinking forever, he would gladly help. But could he truly fix it? The answer was no. At least, not yet. The Going Merry simply couldn't carry them all the way to the end. Veer could patch it up, sure. But he couldn't upgrade its core structure. Yes, he could turn parts of it into steel. But that ability had a time limit. The effect only lasted for a short while. Was he supposed to keep watch over the ship 24/7? That was clearly unrealistic. And in the new world, once the Merry reverted to its original wooden state, destruction would be instantaneous. The seas there weren't as forgiving as those in the first half of the Grand Line. Changing ships was inevitable. But with Veer around, the Going Merry would never end up sinking into the ocean. He could shrink it down and store it on the future Sunny. The ship spirit wouldn't disappear. That way, Merry could still accompany everyone to the end of their journey. So for now, repairs weren't necessary. It would be better to wait until the Merry was truly at its limit before taking action. Otherwise, as long as the Merry was still in decent shape, the crew would never agree to switching ships. With this in mind, Veer let out a helpless sigh and said, "I can't fix you." The moment those words left his mouth, the little spirit that had been so excited just moments ago froze. Its hood visibly drooped lower. The corners of its mouth curved downward involuntarily. A wave of disappointment washed over it, impossible to ignore. Just as Merry was about to cry, Veer spoke again. "I really can't fix you, but I won't let you sink into the sea." The moment Veer finished speaking, Merry froze again. Not fix me but also not let me sink? Was he planning to abandon me on some deserted island to rot alone? If that was the case, I'd rather embrace the ocean's depths. Merry was about to refuse when. "And I'll make sure you can stay with us." "Hey? What? What did I just hear?" Merry froze again. A few simple words had completely short-circuited its tiny brain. Not fix me, but still keep me around? How was that possible? Would they tow me with another ship? But once I'm completely broken, even towing wouldn't work. What exactly did Veer mean? Did he have another plan? If so, that would be amazing. Really? Really, Veer? If that's possible, that would be incredible. But, is it really doable? Merry took a few excited steps forward, looking up at Veer with anticipation. Its tiny hands fidgeted nervously. It wanted to hug Veer's leg but felt that wouldn't be appropriate. So it kept raising and lowering its hands awkwardly in midair. Seeing this, Veer couldn't help but chuckle. Ship spirits really did have the minds of children. He crouched down, looking at the spirit that only reached his shin. With a serious expression, he said, "It's true. I swear on Chopper staying single for life." Chapter 75, again? Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. On this day, the log pose on Nami's wrist finally pointed in another direction. Everyone gathered on the ship. They all knew it was time to set sail. Over the past 2 days, Nami had practically gathered all the remaining gold from this place. Robin and Chopper had studied the poneglyph here. Meanwhile, Luffy, along with Zoro and Sanji, had found the enormous golden bell. It was atop the giant vine that Veer had cut down. Luffy struggled quite a bit to prop the bell back up. After Zoro and Sanji, who were both speechless, helped stabilize it, Luffy struck the enormous golden bell with all his might. The sound of the bell resonated throughout the heavens, reaching everyone's ears. That, of course, included Mont Blanc cricket on the blue sea. At this moment, he stood on the coastline, gazing up at the sky. On the surface, he seemed calm, but his tears had long since flowed uncontrollably. "My ancestor was not a liar. Thank you, Luffy. Veer. Yo-ho! Let's set sail." With Luffy's excited command, the ship rode the cloud current and passed through a massive arch. And with that, the cloud current came to an end. The ship was about to free fall. Ah! Are we really going down like this? We're going to die. Luffy. Did you even think about how we're going to land? The ship was already filled with panicked screams. Only Luffy and Veer remained calm, waving to the people they left behind. "We'll come back next time. Everyone, wait for us!" Luffy shouted cheerfully. But behind them, Raki and the others turned pale. "Come back!" They all exclaimed in unison, turning in sync to stare at the ever-calm Veer. "Please, no! We're begging you! If we're really brothers, don't come back! Brothers are in the heart, not in the face." Soon, they vanished from Luffy's sight. Luffy, looking puzzled, muttered, "Why do they look so unhappy? Are they reluctant to part with us? Veer, let's come back to Skypia someday. This place is amazing." Hearing this, Veer could only admire Luffy's thought process. They were practically ready to shove a gun barrel in his mouth to make sure he never came back, and yet he couldn't tell. As the ship continued to descend and was about to pierce through the clouds, a giant octopus suddenly wrapped itself around the Going Merry. Its massive head ballooned like a hot air balloon. The rate of descent visibly slowed. Phew, I didn't expect Skypia to have a descent mechanism. That was terrifying. Still shaken, Nami let out a sigh of relief as she watched the Going Merry's gradual descent. 5 minutes later. Hey, doesn't it look like this octopus is shrinking? Usopp stared uncertainly at the massive octopus above them. No way, that must be your imagination. Nami responded with a sense of dread. 15 minutes later. Ah! Help! The octopus is gone. How did it deflate so fast? Amidst the screams, Veer walked toward the storage room. Raising his hand, he touched the massive pile of gold that Nami had brought back. In just a few seconds, the Going Merry's descent finally came to a halt. A massive glider was now set up above the ship, replacing the octopus. The Going Merry started gliding forward smoothly. Weary saved. The weak and exhausted duo hugged each other in relief. Wow! Veer, you're amazing! Wings made of gold. That's so cool! Luffy looked excitedly at the gliding device above them and gave Veer a big thumbs up. Veer, seeing that the ship was now stable, nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. It worked well. At this rate, there was no way they'd accidentally land in a marine fortress or anything. After slightly adjusting the direction so the Going Merry was flying toward the log pose's destination, Veer returned to his room to space out. He was still browsing the store. That's right. He had been browsing for 2 days and hadn't finished yet. This store was enormous. There were tons of bizarre and outrageous items. He was almost done checking out the section for items that could render an enemy powerless. He had reached page 953 out of 999. But nothing so far was quite right. Either the effects were too weak to take down an admiral, or the price was way beyond his budget. If he couldn't find anything in these last few pages, he'd have no choice but to lay low. 954, 955, 956. As time passed, Veer finally reached the last page. 999. Alright, this is it. Let's see if there's something useful here. He browsed carefully, but his frown deepened with every item he checked. Nothing. Nothing. Still nothing. Don't tell me there's really nothing. What kind of garbage system is this? I demand a refund. But suddenly Veer froze. His expression of anger shifted. In just a second, it transformed into one of pure joy. He found it. The very last item on the last page. But just at that moment a loud explosion echoed. A violent tremor followed. Caught off guard, Veer was thrown to the ground. What the hell? Veer rushed out. On the deck, Luffy and the others had taken a hard fall. Seeing Veer, Chopper, clutching his aching rear, shouted. Big bro! Why your wings didn't slow us down properly? We almost crashed into the sea. Veer instantly realized his mistake. Right. He forgot about that part. With that kind of impact, the Going Merry might have been damaged. Don't just stand there. Check if the Merry is okay. At his words, everyone grew concerned. Yet. That was a hard fall. What if the ship was damaged? A worried Usopp rushed into the cabin first. Luffy and the others scanned their surroundings. Before long, Usopp returned, his previous worry replaced with relief. No leaks at the bottom. No obvious damage to the hull. Everything looks fine here. No problems on my end either. As everyone reported one by one, their worries finally eased. But only Veer sensed something off. The keel is probably broken. He could feel the ship's pain. Oh well. They'd have to wait until Water 7 to get it checked. He wasn't a shipwright, so he didn't understand these things well. After turning the gliding device back into gold and storing it in the warehouse, Veer returned to his room. With the ship stabilized, Nami directed them toward their next destination. Meanwhile, Veer grinned as he stared at the item in the store. Soul-soothing incense. Price, 45,000. Function, releases a scent that induces unconsciousness. Note, the stronger the target, the shorter the duration. Description: OA must-have for every martial arts world's flower thief. Are you sure you don't need it? Yes. This is it. The moment he saw it, Veer had a plan. If the duration was too short? No problem. He'd just add some extra medicine. He didn't need to knock Aokiji out forever just for an instant. As long as he entered an unconscious state, the brick would teach him a lesson. Anesthetic brick. Effect: striking a defenseless target will induce anesthetic status. Anesthetic status: conscious mind, paralyzed body. Defenseless targets weren't just those who had been defeated. Unconsciousness also counted as being defenseless. As long as he landed a hit, wouldn't Aokiji be in for a nice little welding session? He wondered. Could an admiral handle this little combo? Chapter 76, You want to touch me? That's right. In just a few seconds, Veer had already formulated a complete and reliable plan. He had even figured out the exact steps to execute it. Robin was the key. Aokiji was after Robin. So all he needed to do was set something up with Robin, and that old man would be taken down for sure. The most pressing issue now, though, was that he was short on negative points. Soul-soothing incense. Price: 45,000. 45,000, just slightly more than all his savings. He was 2,000 points short. What a hassle. He could only wait until they reached Long Ring Longland and earn the remaining 2,000 while treating Foxy. For now, Veer decided to research the composition and effects of the soul-soothing incense. All this information was available in the shop's item descriptions. Veer wanted to see if he could replicate it. If he succeeded, he'd save a whopping 45,000. That was a fortune. Although the shop didn't sell anything that could directly enhance his strength, it was filled with all sorts of abstract items. If used properly, they could be life-saving. Negative points were valuable, and he needed to save them whenever possible. His current level of expertise in potions was quite high. Maybe, just maybe, he could pull it off. And so, Veer began pulling out various materials from his medical kit. He gathered all the herbs with properties similar to the soul-soothing incense and started experimenting with different combinations. His figure soon became busy with work. Time passed quietly. The sky gradually darkened. Night fell quickly. The noise outside slowly faded. The banquet celebrating their safe return from Skypia had finally come to an end. Everyone retired to their rooms for the night. Some walked on their own, some carried others, and some were carried away. Creak. Veer's door was pushed open. But he was so engrossed in his research that he didn't even notice it. Chopper and Robin glanced at the now cold food on the table, exchanged looks, and could only shake their heads. When Veer got serious, he even forgot to eat. It was like he had entered a trance. After reheating the food, the two went back to their respective rooms. Chopper slept on the bed behind Veer. Robin, on the other hand, walked into Veer's operating room. Though it was called Veer's operating room, it had now become Robin's bedroom. Robin hadn't changed much about the room's layout. She had simply placed a small bed in the corner. The first thing she did upon boarding the ship was choose a room. After wandering around, she still chose Veer's operating room. One reason was that it was close to Veer, allowing her to assist him when needed. The other was that this was the quietest place on the ship. Luffy and the others could be rowdy, but they would never come near this area. So naturally, this place became the most peaceful spot. To be honest, Veer hadn't understood it at first. His operating room was filled with blood-stained drills, industrial saws meant for cutting wood, and hooks used for hanging pigs. Yet Robin didn't mind at all. She even slept soundly in there. He had been completely dumbfounded at the time. Robin had also made some modifications to Veer and Chopper's rooms, adding some facilities and a bookshelf. She had practically turned their rooms into her own personal lounge. Whenever she had free time, she would sit there reading. While Veer was busy preparing experimental potions, she would sit quietly to the side. If Veer needed help, she would summon an extra hand to assist him. She had completely taken over Chopper's job. Luckily, Chopper had been working hard to improve his own skills lately. Otherwise, he wouldn't want to give up the chance to assist Veer and learn from him. And so, time quietly slipped away once again. Another day passed in the blink of an eye. After sitting for 2 full days only drinking a bit of water and using the restroom twice, Veer finally stood up. Creak. The door to the operating room opened. Robin walked out with a smile on her face, looking at the newly standing Veer with amusement. Don't forget our agreement, Doctor. Veer could only nod helplessly at her words. Seeing his reaction, Robin smiled in satisfaction and left. On the table lay the new substance Veer had painstakingly created. But he didn't look too pleased. Because it hadn't met his expectations. Sigh, as expected, it's still not good enough. Well, I guess it makes sense this stuff is from another world, after all. That's right, Veer's attempt to replicate the soul-soothing incense had failed to achieve the same effect. In fact, it was quite far off. So, Veer had tossed the first version into the trash. What was on the table now was the second version. The first version couldn't even knock out Robin, let alone Aokiji. Last night, he had sneakily tested his sleeping agent at Robin's door. He waited until the entire incense stick had burned out before pushing the door open and stepping inside. Seeing Robin lying still on the bed, Veer approached and gently called out to her. She didn't respond. Veer thought he had succeeded. Just as he was about to cough cough. Just as he was about to check her reaction further. Robin, with her eyes still closed, suddenly snapped them open. Her gaze was playful as she looked at Veer, who had both hands stretched toward her. Awkward silence filled the air. I was just. You wanted to touch me. Robin said bluntly. Seeing Veer's panicked expression, she could barely hold back her laughter. No. I was just testing the potion. Veer frantically waved his hands in denial. He truly hadn't expected the potion to be this useless. What potion? Robin immediately followed up with another question. Veer was stunned. Could he really say it out loud? Wouldn't that just confirm he was a creep? No way. Wait a minute. He wasn't a creep. A sleep aid. I came in to see how well you were sleeping. To check the effects. The effects are different on deer, so I wanted to test it on you. Hearing this, Robin chuckled. So your so-called sleep aid works by suffocating people with smoke, hey? She then looked at Veer mischievously. Veer could only scratch his nose awkwardly at her teasing. Doctor, you wouldn't want others to know you're a pervert, would you? Hey? Hearing this, Veer immediately knew he was in trouble. He had screwed up. Damn useless potion. Betraying me like this. From now on, I'm never experimenting on Robin again. Wouldn't it have been easier to test on Luffy? I could just fill the room with smoke, walk in, and slap him twice. Much simpler. Wait. Luffy might not be a good test subject either. Even 2 slaps might not wake him up, which has nothing to do with the potion. If you don't want that, Doctor, then why don't you teach me how to use armament haki? Robin smiled brightly, while Veer looked as if he had swallowed a bitter pill. Damn it! I really brought this upon myself. Chapter 77, Master Veer's class begins. Given the failure of the first version, Veer took the time to analyze his mistakes and develop a second version. And that very second version was now sitting on his desk. The primary function of this new sedative was not to induce unconsciousness but to enhance the effects of the soul-soothing incense. Since he couldn't successfully develop a direct knockout agent, he simply gave up on that idea. Still, after a full day of work, walking away empty-handed would have been unacceptable. So, using the insights gained from the first version, Veer created a second version that could amplify the sedative's effects. Though he couldn't eliminate the risk of drawbacks, at least this would ensure the operation went more smoothly. It wasn't a complete waste of effort. Version 2 could at least double the effectiveness of the soul-soothing incense. However, if used alone, it had no effect whatsoever. It could only enhance other sedatives. Now, all that was left was to take down Foxy and buy the soul-soothing incense. Glancing at the sandwich Chopper had prepared on the table, Veer picked it up and took a big bite. He was starving. That kid Chopper so thoughtful. Stepping out of his room, Veer was greeted by a lively scene. Almost everyone was training. With Chopper leading the charge, the rest had followed suit. Veer's presence had pushed the entire Straw Hat crew into a competitive frenzy. The Going Merry was nearly groaning under the weight of all the heavy training equipment loaded onto it. They should be arriving soon. Veer couldn't help but think. Once they reached Long Ring Long Land, he absolutely could not let Luffy agree to any ridiculous competition. That would be the height of stupidity. They had nothing of value to bet, yet they wanted to gamble with him? Only an idiot like Luffy would agree to something like that. The whole contest was utterly pointless. A complete waste of time. When Veer first watched this part of the story, his blood pressure nearly skyrocketed through the roof. So this time, he absolutely would not let Luffy accept. He'd just beat those fools to a pulp, heal them up, and move on. Veer really didn't want to waste even a single extra glance at them. And as the Going Merry sailed forward, an island finally began to take shape in the distance. There's an island up ahead. Zoro, who had been keeping watch in the crow's nest, shouted down. Soon, the ship docked amid the excited cheers of the crew. After being stuck on the ship for days, Luffy and the others were practically bursting at the seams. It had been nothing but training, and more training. And skipping training? Not an option. Because if you got injured while everyone else stayed fine, the mental blow would be unbearable. Take Zoro and Sanji, for example. The two had been training the hardest, fiercely competing against each other with ruthless sparring sessions. Now, finally seeing land, the whole crew was brimming with excitement. The moment the ship steadied, they shot off like chickens that had just spotted a basket of feed. Even Chopper was no exception. Only Robin remained calm. She was probably the only one on the ship whose personality wasn't overly animated. At this moment, Robin was smiling, her gaze lingering on Veer. Her expression was identical to the one she had last night. Veer felt uncomfortable under her stare. Without another word, he jumped off the ship. The lush green grass, the pleasant temperature. Even the sea breeze felt nice. Come to think of it, he had never really noticed before this place had a pretty great environment. The surroundings were familiar too, confirming that this was indeed the island where the story took place. However, they had arrived about a day earlier than in the original events. Veer wasn't sure if that gang would still show up. They should still come, just a matter of when. But there was no rush. The log pose needed time to store magnetic energy anyway. Might as well eat, drink, and relax in the meantime. With his observation haki, no one could escape his notice once they arrived. Spotting a massive rock, Veer hopped on top of it and took a seat. Now, there was another key issue. If Foxy's no Mi was ignored, his combat ability was incredibly weak. And he wasn't exactly an important character. Under normal circumstances, he probably wouldn't yield much negative karma points. Which was bad news. If he couldn't even rack up 2,000 points, things would get troublesome again. However, Veer vaguely remembered that Foxy had a massive weakness: he couldn't stand people insulting his face. That might be the key. With that thought, Veer pulled up the system store and bought a loudspeaker. Yes. The kind used for street vending. Looking at the loudspeaker in his hand, identical to what he remembered, Veer nodded in satisfaction. This thing was going to be incredibly useful. Just how useful depended on how much Foxy hated being called ugly. At that moment, a shadow fell over him. Holding the loudspeaker, Veer looked up. Robin was standing in front of him once again. "Doctor, it's time for you to fulfill your promise." Robin's voice was calm and soft. Originally, she hadn't been particularly interested in growing stronger. She was already one of the stronger members of the crew. But after witnessing Chopper's true power on Skypia, her perspective had shifted. Only slightly, though. It wasn't until she saw Veer in action that her mindset fully changed. As for why? There were many possible reasons. But ultimately, she now wanted to become stronger. Which was a good thing. However, after last night's incident, the way she looked at Veer had changed, becoming bolder. If it were just about teaching her armament haki, Veer wouldn't have minded. After all, she had helped him plenty before. But now that she had leverage over him, her eyes carried a strange glint every time she looked at him. It was giving Veer a headache. Seeing her sit beside him with an earnest expression, ready to listen, Veer rubbed his temples. It seemed like she wasn't going to let this go without an explanation. Taking a moment to organize his words, he finally spoke. Armament haki is an innate energy within everyone. It exists in all of us, just in varying amounts. As he spoke, Veer raised his palm. With a mere thought, his hand turned pitch black. What we need to do is gather that energy just like this. Robin nodded thoughtfully. She had a general understanding of what armament haki was now. But when she tried to sense it within herself, she found nothing. Why can't I do it? I don't feel anything at all. Robin asked, puzzled. That's because your energy level is too low, so low you can't perceive it. To increase it, you need to train. It's closely linked to physical fitness. The stronger your body, the easier it is to sense and control this energy. And why is that? Simple, because the energy itself increases. The more energy you have, the easier it is to detect. So getting physically stronger is key. That's all I can tell you. The rest is up to you. Hearing this, Robin's face showed a hint of understanding. She tried a few more times and finally managed to faintly sense the energy Veer spoke of. But only barely. She knew she had a long way to go before successfully using it. At that moment, she suddenly realized something. She looked up at Veer in amazement. Veer flinched. Oh no, she's not thinking of something weird again, is she? Chapter 78, Training Chopper? Robin faintly sensed something but couldn't make it out clearly. She looked at Veer in confusion. But Veer didn't give her a response. In a flash, he vanished from sight. Robin was startled. All that remained where Veer had been standing were a few lingering arcs of electricity. She couldn't even tell which direction he had gone. This speed! Robin was once again astonished by Veer. She turned her head to look in the direction Veer had been staring at. But she found nothing. Still, an ominous feeling crept into her heart. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination, but it felt like the temperature had dropped slightly. Boss! I spotted the Straw Hat's ship. They're on this island. Fet. Finally caught up to them. Good job, Porch. Aboard the massive and flamboyant sexy Foxy, the ridiculously ugly Foxy grinned brightly at Porch beside him. They had been chasing the Straw Hat pirates for an entire day. Today, they had finally caught up. Foxy had long set his sights on the talented members of the Straw Hat crew. His goal was to steal them away using the Davy back fight. Currently, his crew held an undefeated streak of 920 consecutive wins. Of course, that was thanks to their masterful cheating tactics. Most of the crew members on the ship had been won through these games. With our strength, as long as we can get that Straw Hat Luffy to agree to a match, we've already won. A guy who looked like a gorilla chimed in. Fet. That's right, Hamburg. Our strength is beyond their imagination. Foxy never even considered the possibility that their opponents would refuse, or that they themselves might lose. After all, they had won over 900 times. They had never lost before. Boss, if we win the first round, can we take that little reindeer? That pet is just too cute, I really want to train it a bit. Porch requested eagerly. Foxy, of course, wouldn't refuse. After all, in the end, they would take every crew member. The order didn't matter. No problem. I'll make sure you get to play with it. Fet. Thanks, boss. Let's go. I can't wait to get my hands on those two lovely ladies. Fet. With that, Foxy waved his hand, and his entire crew moved out. At this moment, Veer, having changed his appearance, stood silently on the deck, watching everything unfold. This bunch of scumbags. They were exactly as despicable as he had expected. They even wanted to train Chopper? How bold! Even I haven't cough. They actually dare to mess with my reindeer? These guys really have some nerve. And then there's Foxy himself. He's ugly beyond belief. When the fight starts, I have to mess up his face. Otherwise, it's just too disgusting to look at. There isn't a single decent-looking person on that entire ship. Tisk. Just as Veer was about to take action and wipe out this group of fools, a familiar voice rang out. Hey! Have you guys seen Shelley? She's a horse. That voice was filled with unmistakable idiocy. Veer recognized it instantly. Damn it! Why did he have to show up here? Luffy! Why are you running off again? What if you get lost? Another voice called out, and Veer was completely speechless. He looked up, and just as he expected, they were all here. The one who just spoke was Zoro. And yet, it was definitely him. And he said it with absolute confidence. All right. Since things had turned out this way, he might as well let Luffy test whether this guy was really as thin-skinned as the rumors said. That way, he'd know if he needed to step in himself. As long as Luffy didn't agree to any competition, everything would be fine. If he dared to say yes, Veer would just zap him with a lightning bolt. On second thought, maybe a good punch would be better. Foxy, on the other hand, was thrilled to see the entire Straw Hat crew gathered before him. He hadn't even gone looking for them yet, and they had come right to him. How considerate. This fool looks so easy to trick. As for Shelley, perfect for baiting him into a match. I saw her. And I caught her. She's my prize now. Do you want to save her? Foxy smirked slyly. What? You caught her? Of course, I want to save her. By the way, old man, your ridiculous split hairstyle is way too ugly. Luffy's initial expression was one of righteous fury, but as soon as he noticed Foxy's hair, he couldn't help but mock him. Foxy had been delighted at first, ready to explain the rules of the game. But then he heard Luffy's second sentence. His entire demeanor collapsed. With a loud thud, he fell to his knees. Why you? Why you re so mean? Damn it! I'll take everything from you. You want to save Shelley? Then accept the most sacred duel among pirates. A battle where the winners take the losers' crewmates. Well. Do you want to save her? Shelley is our crewmate now. Foxy's voice grew louder and angrier, until he was practically shouting. Hearing the words take crewmates, Nami and the others immediately sensed danger. Chopper shouted, Luffy, don't agree to it. But before Luffy could react, Porch interjected. What an adorable little pet. I can't wait to have you. Her words instantly made Chopper's fur stand on end. That statement was dangerous. Chopper immediately shot back, I belong to my big bro. He won't let you take me. Big bro? You mean that Veer guy? Porch asked. That's right. Chopper straightened his back proudly. But instead of being intimidated, the foxy pirates burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. Veer? You think he can stop us? Yet. That loser who only knows how to drive a tractor? What a joke. The Marines must have lost their minds to give him such a high bounty. It's hilarious. The entire crew laughed until they were practically rolling on the floor, mocking Veer relentlessly. You hear that, little reindeer? Your big bro is a loser. Join us, and you'll have a future. Fet. Foxy sneered and tossed a bounty poster their way. See for yourselves. A tractor driver, seriously. Fet. Chopper was furious, clenching his hooves tightly. He was even gripping a rumble ball, ready to fight. But just then, a loud gasp came from behind. Hey! It's Veer's bounty poster. Chopper momentarily abandoned his rage and ran over, looking up at the poster in Luffy's hands. The image showed Veer in Alabasta, driving a tractor. And sitting on his head was Chopper himself. Seeing himself in the photo, Chopper's mood lifted instantly. A photo with Big Bro. So cool. Then he looked at the bounty amount. 10, 100, 1000, 10,000. Everyone counted the numbers together. Million, 10 million, 100 million. 200 million. He's worth 200 million. The group cried out in shock. That's insanely high. A full 200 million. And this is just his first bounty. Zoro said in disbelief. I don't even have a bounty yet. And he's already at 200 million. How am I supposed to compete? Sanji shouted in frustration. Nami and Usopp had similar stunned expressions. They were truly shaken. Wow! Why is his bounty so much higher than mine? This is so unfair. Luffy, on the other hand, started crying. His bounty had originally been 30 million, and it had recently increased to 100 million. But seeing Veer's bounty, he found it hard to accept. Even Robin was shocked by the bounty. Her bounty was only 80 million, and his was already 200 million. The only one who was happy was Chopper. He was overjoyed. Big Bro driving a tractor is so cool. Chapter 79, Your foul mouth can be cured too for free. Foxy was momentarily stunned by the reactions of the people across from him. What was going on? Shouldn't they be upset? And how long has this bounty been out? Why do they all look like they're seeing it for the first time? From their perspective, the guy in the wanted poster Veer looked like some farmer driving a tractor. More importantly, the standout aspect of this guy was his speed. Speed and his kicking techniques. That was exactly why they didn't take Veer seriously. After all, their captain had the perfect counter to speedsters. As long as the omnidirectional, angle-less mirror reflection light hit its mark, the opponent would be done for. So, despite Veer's bounty being as high as 200 million berries, they never paid him any attention. To them, he was nothing more than a small fry they could swat away at any moment. They had never even given him a proper look. Oi! Are you going to accept the challenge or not? If you don't, we're roasting Shelly and eating her. Foxy shouted, now visibly agitated. These guys on the other side were really not taking him, Silver Fox, seriously. How dare they ignore him? Upon hearing this, Luffy, who had been kneeling on the ground sobbing, instantly sprang to his feet. The bounty? That didn't matter. Shelly was clearly more important. This time, Luffy and his crew hadn't run into that old man. They had only encountered Shelly, the small horse, wandering alone. What? No way. Shelly is our companion. Luffy shouted with conviction. Then are you going to accept our challenge or not? Foxy demanded, watching as Luffy prepared to agree without hesitation. He couldn't let Shelly get roasted. The rest of the crew immediately saw through the ploy. Don't agree to it. Luffy. He's definitely tricking you. Stop believing random people, you idiot. The crew shouted as they rushed toward Luffy, intending to pin him down first and talk sense into him later. But just as they restrained him. Gomu no Fusen. Luffy suddenly inflated like a balloon, sending everyone flying. IACC. Just as Luffy was about to blurt out his acceptance, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. A fist rapidly expanded in his vision. Since Luffy's mouth was wide open at that moment, the fist shot straight into it. It even bulged out from the back of his head. OUHRRG. With a strange noise, the full force of the punch landed on Luffy, sending his head snapping backward. Asterisk bang. Asterisk. A loud crash echoed. Zoro, clutching his head, let out a miserable yell. Luffy was lying on the side, going ooh ooh ooh. That punch had almost blown out his throat. If not for Luffy's fast digestion, he would have spewed out everything he just ate. They're lying to you. Shelly isn't even here. The one who had thrown the punch Veer spoke with a blank expression. What? They lied to me. Damn it. I trusted them. They actually lied to me. Let me go. I'm gonna send them flying. If it had been anyone else, Luffy might not have believed them. He could be pretty stubborn like that. But if it was Veer, then it must be true. Everything he said was right. Seeing this, the entire Foxy Pirates crew turned green with rage. Success had been within their grasp. That damn tractor driver. Ruining their plan. No. They had to salvage the situation. Maybe they could still convince that Straw Hat guy. Foxy quickly formulated his next move and turned to Veer, who stood at the forefront. Get lost, you damn lackey. Don't interfere with a conversation between captains. Foxy completely dismissed Veer as an opponent. He spoke with zero hesitation. After all, he had taken down at least 80 speed specialists in his time. The results were always the same, they never stood a chance against him. That confidence gave Foxy the courage to mock the bounty of 200 million berries slapped on Veer. Yet. Damn tractor driver. Move aside. A good dog knows not to block the road. Scram. In front of our captain, you're nothing but trash. Get lost. The rest of the crew joined in, hurling taunts. Straw Hat. If you don't accept soon, we're leaving for real. And we're taking Shelly with us. Are you really going to trust that weakling over us? Foxy kept pressuring Luffy, sneaking in insults toward Veer, as if trying to rile him up. Maybe that would increase their chances of success. At that moment, all eyes turned to Luffy. But not just Luffy, every single member of the Straw Hat crew had the same strange expression. What were these guys doing? Were they insane? The crew exchanged looks, their faces filled with disbelief. Did they just insult Veer? Luffy asked hesitantly. If our ears are working properly, yeah, they did. Zoro confirmed, temporarily forgetting his own pain. These guys are always this brave. Sanji muttered, lighting a cigarette. The last time Veer got mad was still fresh in their minds. Back then, Crocodile had his kidney kicked to oblivion. And according to Robin, after Veer found the heavily injured Crocodile, he even treated him. That was what made Veer terrifying. He didn't just beat you up or kill you. He made you wish you were dead instead. Crocodile had it rough. And these guys had just dug their own graves. Veer, now looking at the smug-faced Foxy, had already figured out their plan. Relying on the slow beam to take him down? With that extremely slow beam? That thing hitting anyone was already ridiculous, and they thought it would work on him? Alright. Fine. If they were this cocky over something so laughable, then it was about time he put them in their place. You really think you can beat me? Veer asked expressionlessly. The Straw Hats, seeing his demeanor, knew instantly these guys were done for. Veer looked pissed. But Foxy and his crew, oblivious to the shift in atmosphere, froze for a second before bursting into laughter. Ha ha ha. This idiot. He thinks he can beat the boss. Yet, if he comes close, he's eating a slow beam. Does he really think he's some big shot? Foxy himself was laughing so hard he could barely stand straight. After a long chuckle, he looked at Veer with a relaxed grin. All right, fine. I'll give you a chance. Come on, try and kill me. Fet. But the moment he finished speaking, Veer vanished. Foxy's expression changed instantly. That speed. Too fast. Where did he go? He hadn't seen a thing. But no problem. As long as he appeared. As long as he was hit by the Noro beam, he was finished. At that moment, a shadow materialized in front of Foxy like a ghost. In Veer's hand, a lightning-charged sword crackled. Foxy panicked and tried to raise his hand to fire. */*. A flash of the blade. Thud. Two severed hands hit the ground. Silence engulfed the battlefield. Every eye widened in horror. Veer's lightning sword slowly faded as he smiled at the trembling Foxy. So. Do you still think you can win? Chapter 80, Brush your teeth? Nah, stomach pump. What just happened? What just happened? That speed. They only saw a flash of something. And then it was over. Their captain didn't even have time to fire his beam. His hands was gone before he could react. They were truly terrified. If that guy had targeted them instead, wouldn't they have been sent straight to heaven in an instant? Oh no, this is bad. We've really kicked an iron plate this time. Luffy and the others were also somewhat surprised by what they had just witnessed. Veer seems even stronger now. That speed just now. Even they could barely keep up with it. They only vaguely saw a flicker of electricity. And that thunder sword. Is this another one of Veer's new abilities? It's simply unbelievable. With that kind of speed, he's already at the top level of the world. Foxy, whose hands had just been cut off, finally showed a look of genuine fear on his face. He looked at Veer, who was standing right in front of him with a bright, cheerful smile, and with a thud, he dropped to his knees. Big boss. Brother, please don't kill me. I was just messing around. I was wrong. I deserve to die. We'll leave immediately. Please have mercy. At this moment, Foxy completely gave up on the idea of stealing a crew member from the Straw Hats. He just wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. But Veer remained unfazed by his pleading. If apologizing worked, why would we need doctors? Hearing this, Foxy's face changed instantly. If he couldn't leave, then he had only one option: fight. Of course, that meant having his crew fight. Men. Since we can't leave. All of you, charge. Kill this guy. Foxy shouted loudly. Hamburg, standing beside him, immediately charged forward without hesitation. The scene instantly descended into chaos. In the blink of an eye, the crew split into two groups. One group charged forward like fools, while the other ran for their lives. Luffy and the others wanted to step in and help, but Robin stopped them. If you go up there, you'll probably just end up as collateral damage. It's not like he can't handle it himself. After hearing this, they realized she had a point. Veer's strength was beyond what these small fry could comprehend. They might as well sit back and enjoy the show. At that moment, thunder crackled in Veer's hand. With a casual wave, bolts of lightning surged across the entire battlefield. The entire Foxy Pirates crew was engulfed. The crackling of electricity filled the air. The entire crew was instantly paralyzed in place. Each of them trembled like leaves in the wind. The ones who had been the loudest just moments ago were now convulsing the hardest, with the most smoke rising from their bodies. Porch had no thoughts of getting Chopper anymore. She was now Veer's primary target of attention. She was on the verge of being electrocuted to death. Before long, one by one, bodies started collapsing to the ground with thuds. In just a few seconds, Foxy was the only one still standing. He stood there in the middle of a pile of his fallen crewmates. The terrifying electric storm had not directly targeted him. But all around him, figures were still sparking with residual electricity. Would he dare to move? Foxy was truly terrified now. What the hell was this guy? If you were this strong, why didn't you say so earlier? If you had told me, would I have come here to die? And those Marines? If you don't know how to make a bounty poster, just don't do it. Why the hell did you use a picture of him driving a tractor? Who were you trying to fool? Foxy was completely dumbfounded. Veer's strength was beyond anything he had expected. He deeply regretted everything now. If he had known, he would never have come here to deliver himself to his doom. But Veer didn't care about any of that. Looking at the utterly broken Foxy, his face showed no hint of mercy. He held his makeshift weapon, a burning stick, but after thinking for a moment, he decided against using it. Physical attacks weren't really his style. Should he try a different method? Foxy saw Veer suddenly pause and thought he had a chance. But in the next moment, Veer pulled out a brush from his medical kit. And not just any brush. How did Foxy know? The smell was enough to nearly knock him out. This was a damn toilet brush. What the hell is he planning to do? Foxy panicked, but it was useless. Veer had already planted a foot on his chest, pinning him firmly to the ground. Filthy mouth, hey? Let's make it even filthier. Fight poison with poison. Foxy clenched his mouth shut tighter than a clam. If he dared to open it now, what would happen with that toilet brush covered in? Did he even need to think about it? If this really happened to him, it would be worse than death. Not opening his mouth? Did he think that could stop Veer? A jolt of electricity surged through him. Foxy's mouth instantly flew wide open. And the moment it did, his mind shattered completely. Veer didn't hesitate in the slightest. He went right in. Did you think I was going to brush your mouth? No. I was going to clean your entire stomach. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have gained 300 negative points. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have gained 100 negative points. Veer, still scrubbing away, looked at the sobbing, snot-dripping Foxy with disdain. Trash. That's all he was. The points were way too low. If Foxy knew what Veer was thinking, he would probably spit blood in his face. Do you even understand how much suffering I'm going through right now? And you dare say something like that? Foxy was on the verge of being scrubbed to death. His stomach was in unbearable pain. It was clear how much strength Veer was using. At first, Foxy was vomiting bits of food. But soon, he was spitting up blood. Mouthful after mouthful of old blood sprayed out. At this point, Foxy just wanted to scream at Veer, "Daddy, stop. I was wrong." But he couldn't do anything. All he could do was endure it, giving it his all to survive. Veer figured the warm-up was about done. It was time for the main course. Thinking this, he finally pulled out the toilet brush. Foxy spat another mouthful of blood. He gasped for air, savoring the fresh, non-toxic oxygen. Just when he thought it was all over, Veer let him know it had only just begun. Stowing away the brush, Veer took out his anesthetic brick. And then he slammed it straight into Foxy's dumbfounded face. What? He hasn't lost consciousness yet? Anesthetic brick not working? No problem. Just keep slamming it until he blacks out. And maybe fix his ugly face while we're at it. Thinking this, Veer kept up a steady rhythm, brick meeting face over and over. Asterisk thud. Thud, asterisk. The others watching from the sidelines frowned slightly. They made a silent vow, never, ever piss off Veer. Even Robin started to feel a bit of regret about her earlier boldness. Maybe she should be a little more careful in the future.
Thanks for listening.